start off with a roll call, and we're going to each public hearing, and then we're going to start the regular planning commission meeting after that. So I'm going to order the first public hearing here tonight. Roll call, please.
Chairman Osterman,
Here.
Supervisor Plotecker, Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Olhafen,
Here.
Commissioner Samansky.
Present.
I've got Planner Holloway on Zoom. Attorney Van Clunen.
Here.
Got Engineer Mitch Lysis on Zoom. I've got Administrator Kathy Nicholas. Supervisor Mark Moonen is not here yet.
We're going to have to hold off on the joint public. Are they both joint? We have to hold off then. Let's call Mark. We need to have a quorum of both the board and the plan commission. We are currently short one member. Mark was. Sure. Understood.
We can't currently hear what's being said up in the front on Zoom.
You can or cannot?
I can hear you, Lisa. I cannot hear the chair.
Gotta love it. Yeah. Yes. A wonderful world we live in. Start from the beginning. Yeah, right.
I believe we've got Mark Moonen on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Mark Moonen is here. That constitutes a quorum then of the town board and the plan commission. Thank you. All right. So tonight we're at the Richard Young Fire Station for the public hearings. Started these at 6:34. Public hearing number 1 is consideration of a proposed 10-year update to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035 as required by Wisconsin Statute 66.1001. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak on this public hearing?
Yes, there is someone. I've got my hand raised.
Lisa?
I've
Yes,
got Lisa on Zoom.
yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, Lisa Otis, ODDIS. W220N9359 Town Line Road. Couple of things that I'd like to bring up. One is the discussion for the plan by the Plan Commission for the comprehensive plan has been the last agenda item the last 2 months. So there has not been very much discussion. In January, the item was tabled. December, it was, there was an approval for a plan. I'm requesting that this item be pushed up earlier in tonight's meeting so that we can have time to discuss and hear what is happening with the plan. Second thing I'd like to bring up is that, as I said, that in the December meeting, the minutes reflect that the board voted on a public participation plan. So that's great. What's the plan? We need some information. As a resident, I've not seen anything as far as any kind of notifications, surveys. In the original plan, the last item in the plan, it talks about suggestions for participation, different things that can be done, things that we did, such as a citizen's survey, having town meetings specifically about this. So I'm just wondering what the plan is that you have proposed and what the timeline for that plan is. So that's a question. Also, have there been changes? Has the commission, the board been discussing changes that would be pertinent to our discussion tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I could speak to that as well during the public hearing if you would like.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I can just share a little bit, Ms. Otis, regarding where the town has been with this comprehensive plan update.
Sure. Is this right?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, Rachel Holloway. So I'm a consultant town planner for Lisbon.
Yep.
I work with Veer Bicker. I would just say,
Yep.
I know this has been discussed at the last, I believe it's the last 2 plan commission meetings. Just that the nature of this update, this is not actually intended to be much of a substantive update to the plan at this time. What the town is currently waiting for is the release of 2020 census data. But we're in a position right now where the current plan was approved in 2009, initially adopted in 2009. It's been amended a handful of times over the years, but because comprehensive plans are required to be what we call updated every 10 years under state statutes, the town wants to make sure that we're staying compliant with that statutory requirement. And so
Right.
the idea here is that really not much is required from Lisbon other than following the statutory procedures for updating or amending the plan. And so the town did approve a public participation plan in December, which it requires for the 30-day public notice, a draft that is shared with the public to give time to review prior to this public hearing. Those are made available publicly, sent to the area newspapers, and at the bare minimum, the town could possibly just reapprove the plan as it is and comply with that statutory requirement for the 10-year update. So you don't have to actually make any modifications to your plan in order to meet that. It's a little unusual, but some communities are doing that because they're in a similar position with this timing of the census data. And it just makes sense to wait for that before doing a more thorough review of the plan. Currently, and what you'll see in the packets tonight, I realize there's a lot of paperwork in there because there's a lot of things going on in the town. But the initial, excuse me, I'm just going to a slide for this so I can speak to the right things here. Oh, where are we at? Okay, so the only thing that we're proposing to change initially for this was just taking a look at it, and some people disagree on whether or not the town had to adopt a new public participation plan for this 10-year update effort. We did that just to make sure we're doing that and notifying the public that this is going on. We're including an updated land use map. No changes are actually proposed to the land use map. This is simply a new print, if you will. It's got a little bit different formatting, but the land use categories are the same as what the town currently has. But that would be in the plan document, and just so that could be replaced online with something that's more up to date. That's Exhibit B, and Exhibit C is the one document that's proposed to be new, because the old one was related to some special planning areas relating to the village of Sussex. And since the town has recently approved a new agreement with Sussex, we wanted to replace Exhibit C to just reflect and tell a little bit about where the town is at with development trends, with the intergovernmental planning that's been done with Sussex and Merton, to just clarify and make sure that the plan reflects the current status. So that's what that one is about. Exhibit E related to amendment procedures for the plan. There's some minor text changes to that document proposed just because that reflected old newspapers that I think one of them no longer exists. And we wanted to make clear that that's really, it specifies some deadlines for submitting plan amendments. It wasn't clear entirely to me when I first started working for Lisbon whether that was for any plan amendment. It's really intended more for map amendments when a developer or landowner is proposing that. So those modifications are just clarifying what the intent of that exhibit is. And Appendix A is simply, that was currently contains an old outdated county park plan. So we want to make sure that that is replaced with the current one. And then in the packets tonight, you'll see there has been a little bit of additional work done. These are new, but in thinking about how can the plan better reflect where Lisbon's at currently, and the actual practices that Lisbon is doing and has been doing for approvals of development. I identified a few different sections within Chapter 2, Chapter 7, and Chapter 9 that I think the text could be tweaked a little bit in places to better reflect, where Lisbon's at and how Lisbon does development reviews. But those are not changing, in my opinion, policies with regard to land use, and how those things are reviewed, but it's a little bit of wordsmithing, if you will. That's really the gist of it, and I'd be happy to answer questions tonight if there's more.
Yeah. So is there an actual draft right now, or is that still being worked on?
Yes, there is an actual draft. It was included in tonight's meeting packets, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, among the staff, but it should be available as well on the town's website where the public hearing notice was posted.
Yeah, I looked there, I couldn't find it. I didn't see anything there. I saw the old, the plan from 2009, all of the chapters that are listed, but I did not see a draft of a new plan, unless it's buried somewhere. So
yeah, there's a webpage for public legal notices and public hearing notices. That's where this has been posted since at least a month ago,
Since
except for the
January
new
6th.
changes.
It's under the agenda section, Lisa, when you go in there and then go under the meeting, the plan commission, and then you'll see there's a couple of them on there, and click on the packet and it's in there. It's got the red line edition also. You're on mute, Lisa. Lisa, you're on mute.
I don't know why. I don't know. Well, in any case, on that same page, and I do see that it's just in the packet, which I did. I do have that open now. But while we're on that page of the town website, there's also incorporation efforts, a tab for that. That's been broken for a couple of months. There's nothing. It takes you to an error page. When can that be fixed? Is there information available?
We're working on a new website right now, Lisa. There's been no updates that have been put on there in some time.
Right. Which means that we're not, as the residents, getting any updates on where you're at with that. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to be negative or positive. I'm just trying to find out, information, because it's certainly something that is a big issue with our board, with our commissions, and with our residents.
Sure. There's
So
nothing right now for that, Lisa, honestly. You're welcome to call any of the town board members or plan commission members anytime, and I'm sure any of us will speak to you about that also, though. My phone number is on there. It goes directly to my cell phone. You are more than welcome to call that, and I guarantee you if I don't answer during the day, I will call you back at night, though, and I can get you fully updated on where we're at.
Yeah, and that's great. Thank you for offering that. However, the general public, needs to have access to that information as well, because when you don't have knowledge of what's happening, what can happen is then negativity occurs. So, you know, being able to see what's going on, keeping residents informed, I think is very important, especially if we are going down that path again. Just my thought on that. Second thing, looking at the approved minutes from the December meeting. There was a note that there were no comments from the public. I was there and I commented. I was also commented in the January meeting, which the minutes are not approved yet. So there's an error there in those minutes because I was not the only person that offered comment as well. So again, what is the public participation plan? I guess I'm not getting that answer.
I'm sorry, I kind of missed that piece, but I am pulling it up here.
Yeah.
Again, this is in the packet as Exhibit A to the plan. This was also provided in the last month's Plan Commission meeting. It is unchanged from last month. This has language. It basically describes the, references statutes. It describes that the Plan Commission is the steering committee to guide this process. That's typical. That notice of the meetings will be posted by the town, and as they do for all public meetings. That Plan Commission will hold one public hearing to allow residents to provide input concerning the plan, which is being held tonight. At a later date, or it says at another meeting, citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the draft plan. Obviously, that can happen tonight. That's the point of the public hearing. The Plan Commission may recommend the comprehensive plan to the town board for adoption. It says the draft plan will be available for 30 days to allow residents to review and provide comments, which we have done, although because there are new edits suggested tonight by staff, I have to mention that staff, we are actually recommending tonight, not that the Plan Commission approve it, but we think some more time is warranted so that everybody has time to review those additional red lines. Even though, again, I don't believe that they're that substantive, but I think they will be helpful. But that's, come out within this 30-day review period. So we think that that would be wise to kind of let that sit for a little longer and bring this back at the next month's Plan Commission meeting. The other things in the public participation plan just describe how notice will be given and according to statute, who needs to receive the notice. All of that has been done by town staff.
Pardon me? What are the details on that? And how it'll be presented and when?
It references 30 days prior to the hearing, the town will post a Class 1 public hearing notice under statutes chapter 985. It shall include the date, place, and time of the hearing, a summary, describing the nature of the updates, which was included in the notice. The name of an employee, a government official who can provide additional information about the update, and information on where you can find a copy of the plan so that you can review it prior to the public hearing.
Yep.
And
when is all of that information going to go out to residents?
It's not mailed out to residents. It's posted as a notice in a couple of public newspapers, and I believe posted in some physical locations in the town, although staff may have to clarify that one.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's also on the town website. As I mentioned, it has been up there for 1 month. At least the initial public hearing draft was available. There are also requirements for the town to provide notice to people who have registered non-metallic mineral deposits. Other people who have an interest in property that they may, it's again related to non-metallic mineral resources. And a record of, keeping records like minutes of meetings, copies of notices, providing accommodations to non-English speaking persons if that is requested. And that this will be a joint hearing with the town board.
So Lisa, we're not going to be recommending the town board tonight, just so you're aware. It has not been on file for the full 30 days. The current one that you're seeing tonight has not been on file for the full 30 days. So we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to go over the different aspects, anything that's redlined especially. So that would be something you're going to want to stand by and listen to.
Yep.
And then if you have questions from that, we'd have to either contact one of us or it'll be coming back at the next plan commission meeting again.
Okay, so what about my suggestion to move that discussion up earlier in the meeting? Because those of us that have been at the last two meetings, we've stuck it out through a lot of the conditional use permit language and only to, have it be late at night, everybody's tired, and in January, there was no discussion. So could we move it up early?
Last item on the agenda last time was because it was not of paramount importance that we address it at that time, and the meeting was extraordinarily long. So it was tabled at that meeting. The agenda
In
is,
December, the same thing, though. It was the last item on the agenda, and there was about
it's
2
gonna
or
be
3
the,
minutes of muffled conversation that I certainly could not hear. I just read once the
Lisa-
minutes were approved and published.
Lisa, it's gonna be the last item again tonight, but this is a much shorter agenda. So we're gonna try and get through this as quickly as possible. There's nothing on here that's contentious, that should take real long. So this won't be a long period of time before we get to it tonight.
Okay, great.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this first public hearing?
I just wanted to also, before we move it over, just wanted to again restate what I have stated at the last meeting, that I'm opposed to rezoning of any conservancy or upper corridor zone land moving forward, depending on what, I don't know if there's any of that in the proposed long range use plan.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you, Lisa.
And this is Noel Geyer. I'm wondering if I could talk for just a sec.
Yes.
I had requested previously that the amount of room between the rezone property and the notifications going out to the neighbors be the 500, because you had discussed making it 300 feet, and 500 feet in the rural areas is better. Out here by me, obviously it would only be one person being notified. If they were to actually make it 300 feet from the property that I'm most interested in. So I'm hoping that you'll continue to, it was discussed, and hopefully go back to the 500 feet instead of the 300 feet that you said you were going to go to 500. And then later on in the night, when it was really late, it was discussed and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll just stick with the 300. And then you moved on, and earlier you had said that 500 was a good idea because of some of the rural areas. So
Noel, can you state your address, please?
this is N95W25878 Riverview Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Is there anyone else on Zoom, Lisa? Okay, is there anyone else here that'd like to speak in this public hearing tonight? Public hearing number 1? All right, I'll close public hearing number 1 at 6:58, and we'll go to the next public hearing, which is a request by applicant Joe Bukovich for MLG/Twin Pines LLC to rezone unplatted lands on Lake 5 Road, tax key LSBT 0171.995 from A10 agricultural to R1 suburban single-family residential district. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? Anyone in attendance? Anyone on Zoom? Not looking like it.
Does not appear to be, no.
All right, final call here for anyone who wishes to speak in this public hearing. Close the second public hearing at 6:59, which will bring us to the Plan Commission meeting at 6:59. Item 2 is citizens' comment. We've already done roll call. Does anyone wish to speak on any item tonight? if you want to speak tonight, Dan, you'll have a chance on your agenda item, but if anyone else would like to speak on any item tonight, this is your only chance to speak. If you want to come on up and state your name and address. Is there a microphone up there?
Yep, the mic is up there. You're gonna have to flip the switch on the side of the mic to the on position.
Just state your name and address.
Is this the right thing?
Yep.
My name is Jody Jensen, and my address is N80W24326 Plainview Road, Sussex. I don't know if I'm talking about the right thing, but I was told that I had to come here for an occupancy permit. Is this the right time for that? Is that what you're asking?
Your item. Yeah, you are here for an actual agenda item,
Okay,
so you'll be able to speak during that.
okay, I'm sorry, I just
No,
don't
it's fine.
understand what I'm doing.
No problem at all.
All right.
No problem. All right, does anyone else have any citizens' comments? Anything on Zoom?
I'm going through Zoom now. Does not appear to be anyone on Zoom wishing to comment.
All right. Got item three, which is the minutes. We've got the October 8th, 2020 Plan Commission minutes, the November 12th, 2020 Public Hearing and Plan Commission minutes, and the December 10th, 2020 Public Hearing and Plan Commission minutes. All right, pull them up here. So we had some comments earlier about the December public hearing minutes not being complete, not being correct. Pop those up here.
I do. And what Lisa was referring to was for the December Plan Commission minutes. She did not speak under citizen comment. However, she did comment under both public hearings.
Sure, and I
So her
see,
comments were reflected.
and I do see them here in the public hearing number one. It
And
is
two.
listed, and two. So there were two sets of minutes that night. There's the Plan Commission and there's also the public hearing minutes. In the public hearing minutes, they are in there. All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on the minutes? Is there any motion on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes from the before mentioned dates be approved as presented.
Motion by Ed Nelson to approve the minutes, all of them, the October 8th, November 12th, and December 10th minutes. Is there a second? Second by Brian. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 6-0. All right, item 4 is unfinished business. A, discussion necessary action regarding proposed amendments to various sections of Chapter 11 of the Town Zoning Code related to conditional use permits due to a recent change in state law. This was tabled on the 1/14/21 meeting. Is anyone here tonight for this? No. Doesn't screw you up too much, Rachel. Let's move this one to the last.
Oh, not a problem.
There's nobody here to talk about that one, so. We're gonna move item 4A to the last item. Which brings us to 5, new business. A, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Joe Bukovich for MLG PF Twin Pines LLC for unplatted lands on Lake 5 Road, tax Gillis, BT 0171.995. For the following, a rezone from A10 agricultural district to R1 suburban single-family residential district and recommendation of the town board of the same. This was approved at the Lisbon Merton Joint Planning Committee meeting on February 1st. And also a concept plan review for a proposed subdivision. Dan Scardino is here tonight. And Joe Bukovich, how you doing, Joe? All right, Rachel, why don't we start off with you?
All right, I'll just try to be brief here with the overview. As you stated, the applicant's proposing a rezoning from what is currently A10 agricultural to R1 suburban single family. This would be intended for phase 3 of the Twin Pine Farms subdivision up in the northwest part of Lisbon. This is a project that the earlier phases were done in the 2000s. And now the this developer is proposing to go forward with phase 3. So here you can see an aerial. Hopefully you could see this up there on the screen. The site location. So this is north of Plainview Road and just on the west side of Lake 5 Road. And there's current zoning. The A10 is in green here. The yellow to the north is R1. So the applicant is proposing to match the zoning of the other parts of the subdivision further to the north. And this is right up at the edge of the town where it abuts the town of Merton. And here we've got the proposed zoning. Just looking through this and the staff report. Here we've got future land use map. This is based on the current intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Merton, which was just recently updated in 2020. This shows that the subject parcel, which it's kind of right in the center of the slide here, but it is planned for low density residential, which would allow for 20,000 square feet to 1.4 acres of area per dwelling unit. And the current proposal is right in line with that density. The concept plan is also included in the Plan Commission's packets tonight. They're proposing a total of 37 lots. This is modified slightly. This land was actually part of a preliminary plat back in the mid-2000s that was approved by the town. Since that time, there have been some modifications to the plan, but not very substantial. There were 36 lots at that time, so now it's up to 37. And let's see here. I thought I included, I apologize, the concept plan in one of these slides. I can add that in. But the concept plan in your packet shows the proposed layout. This would remove a full road access to Center Oak Road on the west side, but there would still be, they're currently proposing to maintain an emergency access there. As you mentioned, this went to the Joint Plan Committee for Merton and Lisbon. This was just done on February 1st. They did recommend approval of the rezoning, and they also discussed the concept plan, gave some feedback to the applicant. The staff report in your packets tonight just kind of outlines the main pieces of this and kind of things that I felt were worth commenting on. Other things that you might, we included the updates here on public access, and that the applicant has been in touch with, I believe, that both fire departments for Lisbon and Merton. And hopefully if they could have any updates tonight, it'd be good if they could provide those to the commission. We just make a note that they will have to submit, construction plans and a new preliminary plat. And that is in the works, is my understanding. They will have to do soil testing. The town engineer will have to review a new stormwater management plan. I believe they're may have found the existing one done previously for this development. Just checking for other, there's a small potential wetland on site. They're doing these soil investigations just to verify what's current. That will all be reflected in any future submittals. But the key thing is this would, the rezoning would require action by the Town Plan Commission to recommend to the town board. It requires Joint Plan Committee. They've already done that. This will also require review by the Village of Merton per the intergovernmental agreement under extraterritorial review. So they're going through these various approvals right now as we speak. And I'm just about to put apologize for the omission here, to get the concept plan on this slide so you could see that for those of you who don't have the packet handy. And I'm available to answer questions if you have any.
Questions from the board? Ed?
Rachel, the emergency outflow you mentioned earlier in the extreme southwest corner of the proposed addition, is that outlot, and I'm looking at, in the southwest corner of the subdivision, is that outlot 4? Is that a proposed possible other exit onto Center Oak Road?
Outlot 4, I believe, and applicant could correct me if I'm wrong, but that is proposed for stormwater management. And then there's a 30-foot wide access easement that would connect the internal roads, one called Hunter Court, within this subdivision plat over to Center Oak Road. But that would not be for general use. It would be for emergency vehicles and public safety.
Okay.
My name is Joe Bukovic with MLG Capital, and I'm working with the developer to on this project. And Dan Scardino was with Point Real Estate, and he's here to help out too. To answer Mr. Nelson's question, The outlot 4 is going to be used for stormwater. There's kind of a ridge kind of in the middle between lots like 22, 23. So that westerly cul-de-sac will be draining towards the south. And in the initial concept or the preliminary plat that was approved, there was 2 small slivers, one on either side of that north-south cul-de-sac. And now we've combined those 2 to make one pond, which is more efficient and more amenable to the stormwater. And we did propose to add that 30-foot emergency access while removing the public access. And I just want to give a little bit of background on for all the town board and plan commission members that are here. We had some preliminary meetings with the fire department, and we've agreed to put a hard surface there in that 30-foot easement for emergency vehicles. The main reason for eliminating the public access to Center Oak Road is the future concerns for some of the future neighbors with a lot more traffic running through the subdivision. I apologize, the people on Zoom won't be able to see this, but I brought a copy of the original preliminary plat. So you'll see here that everyone that lives in this part of the neighborhood now has to
Can
go
you-
out.
If you go right over on this table, kind of see it on the, yeah, that'd be good there. Thank you.
Yep,
We got a camera right up there that'll.
if that works. Thanks, Dan. We are concerned about excess traffic coming through the neighborhood into the phase 3. All these people here could use this as a shortcut to come out and come down towards the school and into Merton. So you've got this whole westerly half, instead of coming up and around Twin Pines Circle, out to Lake 5 and around, they'd be shortcutting, and so there'd be an extra amount of traffic running through. And in a residential neighborhood, you have all the concerns about traffic and pedestrians and kids and all that kind of stuff. And then that was the main reason for us to try and provide 2 alternatives. 1, to eliminate the traffic, 2, to still provide for emergency access through the easement. And I guess there's 4 benefits. The third one is to provide for better stormwater. And the 4th one is, if you can see these bottom lots here on 8, lots 7 and 8, they get really squished. And there's not a lot of backyard for those lots. So we wanted to make those more attractive and more usable for the future residents that would buy those lots. So I just want to give you that background before the discussion really starts evolving. And if you have any other further questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So Mr. Bukovic is a civil engineer by trade. So he and I worked together for years, me being in his sales design and he actually making the project work. We had a conversation before today's meeting where I was really indifferent about the access point. I'd like to, I think it's going to be a better project, better development without the permanent or right-of-way going through to Center Oak Road. But he also made it a point where when roadways are put in 50, 100 years ago, it was put in a low point of that area. So in order to have a right-of-way directly across from the existing road here, it's right where a pond should go, to be honest with you. And if this was a sewer and water site, I wouldn't be too concerned about it because we could eradicate the grading and make the drainage flow a different way. But since the town of Lisbon is rural and all of the lots are an acre, the water systems and the septic systems are placed on every one of the lots. So there's a limited amount of grading that we can actually do for the lots themselves to redirect that water to a different area of the site. So we did meet with former chief, excuse me. We talked through that access point. At the time, he was amenable to some sort of a hard surface there that we would work through. I'm not sure if we get a hold of Merton yet, though. Okay.
We did get a hold of the DPW and they don't have major concerns with the layout. That's not the fire department, but that was the town of Merton planner and DPW.
Joe was okay with that as well. He was not concerned about it. Thank you. Any other questions?
If I may, it's interesting, Mr. Bukovic, thank you. And it goes, to, goes to reason that within the subdivision, Twin Pines, whatever phase, that people are not gonna want cars, a lot of vehicles coming out of the other phases that are to the north. The irony of this, and I'd like to go on record, is there will be more cars thrown onto Lake 5, which is obvious, because you have an average of 2 to 3 to 4 cars per household in the town of Lisbon, if it's a typical subdivision. The other thing is, at that southwest corner, as you get towards Plainview and Center Oak Road, Center Oak, no stop sign, Plainview stop signs. So people who want to get over to Merton Elementary, et cetera, or get into Merton, that intersection, which is fairly low density at this time, is going to see the same problems we're seeing with other intersections in the town, where we increase traffic flow and we wonder why we have a problem. So, however, the parcel itself is flat for the most part, and of course was I'm not going to say pre-approved, but was brought before previous commission at quite some time ago, apparently. But anyway, so no other questions.
Jed?
I have nothing.
Brian?
So you said it's going to be a hard surface, such as asphalt, I'm assuming?
As asphalt, gravel, pavers, some kind of, the emergency blocks with grass, some type of surface. We haven't decided on that yet, so,
Okay.
but it would be accessible all year long, rain, shine.
And how are you going to keep people from using it as a shortcut? And then how does the fire department get in? Okay, so the HOA would be responsible, because if you look at these roads, it's, you know, there might not be a fire in there for 10, 20 years possibly. And you look at some of these roads that are overgrown with brush and trees and grass. So the HOA is going to be responsible for cleaning that up or making sure it's accessible.
I talked to Joe about that as well, and I asked him if we could actually pay the town, because he's gonna have a plow truck there. He said it would be different equipment. So we'll incorporate that into the association itself, so it's blended across the entire Twin Pine development. We've built a few developments in Cedarburg, Wisconsin, very rural, just like this, where we've got these same type of fire access, and we'll put one yellow bollard right in the middle of it that can be easily lifted off if the fire truck needs to get through.
I was just about to ask that, again, this is Rachel Holloway, how access would be restricted for the general public. I forgot to mention as well, at the JPC meeting, the Joint Plan Committee, it was discussed, the road network, and they just asked questions to the developer regarding their road layout and what the potential impacts might be to the parcel to the south, since that is currently agricultural as well, or rural, and could potentially be developed in the future. So we discussed the road network. They just gave feedback to the applicant to consider also the school district, since this is, if I have it right, the Arrowhead School District. And so asked him to just consider where, you know, residential traffic would be likely, particularly at peak times. This gets at Mr. Nelson's comments as well.
So we're in discussions with Joe Meisner currently on his property. We're actually meeting with him next week to discuss how we can help him with the connectivity, making sure that whenever he is ready to develop, that the roadway layout works with him. And he does have a copy of this new preliminary plat, meeting with him and his father.
One more thing for me, and then, and the fire chief's okay with this, putting up a bollard there?
So our initial conversation, well, actually you were at,
Yep, I was at the
the
one where
meeting.
he
We
just wanted the access there to be 60 feet wide. I was at that meeting, and I know you were going to talk to him about this one, but I just want to make sure he's okay with this, because to get out and,
It's a she now.
or she, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, prior to you. To get out, they have to stop the truck, get out, lift up a bollard, and then if
Yep.
somebody's going to plow it, they have to do the same thing.
Which will be our cost.
I guess,
Well, the rest.
no, I understand that, but I guess human nature is going to be, I don't want to get out of my truck and plow if I got to lift up that bollard. And if it's frozen in, then I'm
Yeah.
really not going to do it. Or if it's plastic, I'm going to plow it bump
Yeah.
into it and shatter it. If it's metal, I can't lift it or it'll rust in.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be nitpicky. I'm just
No.
looking at
and-
all the possible things that could go wrong in case of an emergency. I'm almost thinking
Makes sense.
maybe would it be better to have the access not even there? Because
I appreciate that. And, you know, when we looked at the original map itself, we looked at the drainage. We looked at Haas Farms to the north. It has one connection onto Lake 5 Road. That is, I think it's 43 or 46 lots.
sure.
Then you look at Twin Pines. It's got a access point. I don't remember the name of the crossroad. There's three other, this will be the the third eventual access point to Lake 5 Road. We want to make Chief happy, the fire, we want to make everyone happy, right? So,
Impossible.
Yeah, if the previous chief and the new chief are okay with this, I'm not gonna argue with them because
Yeah.
they know how to like save lives way better than I do, but
right,
I just I'm thinking in my head, maybe it's better to just get rid of it rather than cause all these problems because, you know, what if they're relying on this and then they can't get through? But
you know,
I mean,
it's,
that's a what
if
if.
they want it there, it's going to go there, right? So the only thing that we're trying to work around is the drainage itself, not try to cut the top of the hill off from the main entrance over there. And then obviously not trying to create a cut through for the subdivision to Center
Sure.
Oak Road. That's really it. You know, every time we bought this property after the initial developer, we kind of were, we just kind of followed the guidance of what they originally set forth. And we're just trying to take a separate look out of it and see if we can make it better.
Mark?
Well, I think the fact that they expressed a desire for a hard surface means what they really want's a road. I don't think I can support the change without that road, taking that road out of there. It makes perfect sense to me that school buses and other traffic would be off of Lake 5 Road, which is already way too busy. And yes, there will be some people that have a few cars drive by their house, but I think that's the whole point of roads. These roads that go nowhere and isolate all these little pockets of houses are hugely problematic for public safety services. So, I mean, I think the same concerns were raised at the Joint Plan Commission by the representatives from Merton, who both indicated that both for public safety and for the school system, that having that exit out onto the west there was way more appropriate than not. It's not what we agreed to years ago, and I understand what you just said, that it wasn't your proposal, but it is what we thought we were going to get. I think you're too far from Plainview to really, and it's going to be much slower. I don't think there's a good shortcut in there for people that are already on Lake 5. So I think what you're talking about here is whether or not the people in your neighborhoods from your subdivisions are going to be able to get to their schools that they need to get to, and whether fire and ambulance apparatus can get to their homes quickly. It seems to me that it's entirely appropriate to have that road there. You haven't presented anything to me tonight that, other than some people might not like the number of cars driving past their house. There's nothing that you've told me that really indicates that road can't go there. And in my mind, it really should go there. It just makes sense. Doesn't make any sense to have these roads that don't connect to anything, particularly when everything that all these people in all three of these phases of this development, do is towards the west. I don't know. I think if you were having a heart attack, on lot 14, you would not want the fire department to have to drive the extra time around down to Lake 5 and then come back up to your house. If your house was on fire, you would not want them having to drive down to Lake 5 and then come back up through the driveway. The whole deal with the bollard and all that, it's a disaster. That's not ever going to work. I totally agree with Brian on that. But I think that rather than eliminate the access, you need the road. Those are just my thoughts. if it doesn't, I mean, I'm only one vote, I mean, the fact that I'm not going to support it isn't going to kill your project probably, but it doesn't make any sense to me to change away from something that seems to make perfect sense for everybody in all three phases of this project.
Thank you.
Becky?
No, the only question I had was how you're gonna keep people off the emergency entrance, and you've already answered that. So that's the only question I had.
So in the past, and we're open for, just working with staff to get this taken care of, but in the past, sometimes it'll be a grassed area with stone underneath it, and it looks like a landscape area. So, you might have kids walking through there. There's going to be a stormwater pond on the other side of it. So it'll be maintained, but it'll look like just part of the development. Now, if staff and everyone wants a hard surface, that could be stone, pavers, asphalt, or something that looks different than just a normal roadway itself. So I live in the city of Delafield. I've got one of these for fire access right next to my house. There's just a little bollard in the middle of it. It just never gets used, right? But
Is it plowed open right now?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I'd be willing to make you a wager on whether it is or not.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when these were approved in the past, follow up in the developer's agreement and covenants for the subdivision weren't implemented correctly. It would just go through a meeting like this and be forgotten. So no one actually orchestrated how it would be taken care of in the future. It just got forgotten about in the developer's agreement and then the covenants, which we just don't do that. We make sure that everything's buttoned up.
Mr. Chairman. So how much, so outlet number 4 you said is going to be stormwater?
Correct.
How much, do you know how large of a pond or how much of a retention pond you need for one? Because if you did make that a road, you'd go from approximately 3/4 of an acre to 5/8 of an acre.
So I
for
think,
your outlet.
I think the big difference is the location of the right of way. So it's directly across Marshall Drive.
Okay.
So then it would bisect that area and really squish it.
Okay.
And I'm, right, this is just frankly a pretty picture right now. It has to be proven with design. So the goal would be to get the layout squared away, and then we have to make sure that the stormwater works from there. I wish I could answer that, but I don't know.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you. I was, in looking at the map, looking at the plat, and given Chairman Myers' thoughts.
Not chairman, no.
Oh, sorry, Commission. Sorry, Mark.
Not ready for that, Ed.
No, neither am I. Sorry, but oops, a slip. Eliminating, possibility of eliminating, of course, that might not sit well, obviously, with the developer. Eliminating lot number 12, still not infringing on the stormwater, and then having the road connect out to Center Oak as I'm looking at the plat. Again, just a possibility. To Brian's point with this post, if it would come down to that, would there be any better solutions such as having a gate that you often see on the interstate? That would not be automatic. In other words, it couldn't, because I don't know how it'd be maintained. It might not get used for
There's
2
a
to
couple of
5 years.
There's a couple of examples of that in the city of Pewaukee,
Yeah,
or maybe the village of Pewaukee that they've used
where
that. So
obviously.
we're open for it. I mean, just want to, we're talking in concept, I think working with staff to make sure that they're comfortable with it. If Chief wants to go to Cedarburg where we put the ballards in, they're simply just loose things that you kick off to the side,
Right.
right?
Because Brian's
something that's
point, I mean, they
aesthetically
might
pleasing,
become frozen in, they might get hit. If it's a really bad storm, what are you seeing? Especially if you're plowing at 2 or 3 in the morning. But what I mean by a gate is a lift gate, not an old fashioned like a farming gate. In other words, it would just lift, having a focal point at one side. I don't know if that would help or not, but my other thought was eliminating lot 12, which of course takes away from the developer, affects the marketing scenarios for the whole development. and your cost points and
Right.
obviously your profit scenario.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I know that we're focusing just on the access point to Center Oak Road. And whatever you want is what's going to occur. I mean, we just wanted to create in our eyes a better development in our eyes. We did add cost to the development by doing it this way. If you take a look at what we did off of Lake 5 Road, we actually, from the old preliminary plat till today, we pulled one home site off of Lake 5 Road, put it into the development, and then created a little median there with an area to do some landscaping, so it looks better so the main entrance looks better. I never liked putting houses up against a busy road, so we were able to put that into the mix that way. So I don't know if this is a cost-saving exercise on our end. It's simply what we thought was a better project.
I'm sorry, sir, did you develop the other 2 phases of Twin Pines?
So in 2012, I was hired by the former developer to sell the home sites for them. And then in 2018, he wanted to sell the whole project, which I worked with an investor to acquire all of the lands. And basically I manage it for them.
Okay. Because, I mean, realistically, phase 1 or phase 2 and phase 3 of Twin Pines, very well developed, very high-end homes. I mean, there's no walking paths in there, there's no tot lots, but it's well laid out and well thought out.
It is. So so since 2018, we've personally taken charge of approving all of the home plans. I'm not going to point out the houses, but there's a couple that probably shouldn't have gotten approved, we've got a system now and documentation of every home plan, so you don't end up having a purple house next to a purple house, making sure that if they meet the requirements. And everyone in that development is now, I shouldn't say everyone, it seems as if a lot of the individuals, because of the covenants that we had done, we're not allowing vinyl siding, fencing only in specific areas. It brings, at least it's bringing up the bar from a valuation standpoint. And we're seeing, I think you just approved a pool, it must have been $150,000. And it just, people love it there. They really do. And we want to make sure that the covenants for this phase, because a lot of the residents, I'm the voice of the subdivision, right? We want to make sure the covenants for that phase mirror what we're going to be doing in phase 3 to keep that quality moving forward. We don't build houses, so I can't build myself out of an investment. We have to create a vision and a project that people just come to us and buy and then build their own, right?
Of course.
Is Burton extraterritorial going to be binding on this project?
The JPC was just advisory.
I can tell you Merton definitely wants a road. Their fire department's gonna come back and request a road. The chairman or the president of Merton was very clear on that end.
Yeah. So many years ago, I gave up fighting for things that people just won't approve, right? I guess there's a lot of homework that we've got to do from Merton's end of it. If the plan commission approves it without it, we're going to work with you to figure out what makes the most sense. Does it negate the effort that we put forth to come today? We probably, without that change, we probably wouldn't have needed a pre-approval for the plat again. We could have just changed this entrance and we wouldn't have to be here. So like I said, we just thought we were doing the right thing for everybody. So whatever gets approved or disapproved.
Sure. What's everybody's feeling on the road right now? The access as it stands proposed, or do people want to put a road in here? Ed?
Well, I've obviously suggested eliminating one lot, one buildable lot. I don't know if any other commission members agree with me on that. But definitely, I think the access point is needed. And I would recommend, instead of ballards, I would recommend a gate, a liftable gate.
You're okay with the emergency access point?
Yes,
Okay, Chad?
yes.
I prefer a road if it's workable at all. That's just my preference.
Brian?
I guess I would prefer a road only because I'm afraid that the access is just gonna be forgotten about. Or, and then there is a part of me that says get rid of the access completely. So I guess I'm a little bit torn.
We were trying to do a little bit of both, right? So if we can,
Right, I see what
you know,
you're,
just, you know, I don't drive a fire truck. I'm not a gentleman that's gonna be in the ambulance, right?
well, and
But
I guess.
I was trying to just do a little bit, appease both groups.
This is Rachel. I would just add to this would come up, I think, against the maximum 500-foot length for cul-de-sacs in the town that's in your current subdivision code.
Do we know what path of travel, like, let's,
Sorry, what, Rachel?
Oh, I was just mentioning that they're also contending with the maximum 500-foot length for cul-de-sacs or dead ends in the town. That's in your subdivision code currently, which the town board can approve a waiver to if you see fit to, but if they didn't have some connection there, they might have that issue. I guess they do
from
have
the
that issue.
JPC.
Yeah.
Is everyone being quiet or am I not hearing?
I don't hear them either.
Mark, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, we're having technical difficulties. I figure.
You know, how amazing.
Rachel, anything you said, we didn't hear. Just so you know. We're having
Should I-
Zoom.
Should I try again? Is it worth it?
Yeah, I guess we don't have any idea what you said.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry. I do have a couple things. I should just lay them out now in case some connection issue happens. I was just mentioning a maximum 500-foot length for cul-de-sacs or dead ends in the town. That's in your chapter 12 subdivision code, and that's true whether it's a temporary or permanent situation. So they actually would have that, I think here, even with the proposed connection to the south, it looks like there would be a temporary dead end. If they didn't have any connection there, it would be permanent. So that's just something the town board would require a waiver when they bring a plat forward if you go with this configuration.
Okay.
I also just want to mention briefly in the staff report, I did note because the town recently adopted a updated park plan, which includes some planned, it does recommend one neighborhood park up in this northwest corner of the town. That may or may not apply to this property, but I just pointed that out because we should be connecting these different planning efforts when a subdivision comes forward. So I was hoping the Plan Commission could provide feedback to the applicant tonight as well on whether or not you think any kind of park or trail facilities should be required in some form, or if that's not needed here.
So Rachel, the Twin Pine Phase 1 and 2 has mowed paths throughout all of the lots, the outlots for the community, which it is, the way that they set up the initial two phases, it was not open to the public, it was just for the residents. They jog and take their dogs down the path constantly. And that was the plan to continue. If you take a look on the north side, Outlot 3, there's a mowed path going through that and then meandering through the project to eventually to go to Joe Meisner's property.
Back to the access road. Becky, what's your position between access road and road?
I could go either way, so.
Okay. Mark, I think you were pretty clear unless you've changed your mind.
No, No, I just think it just makes too much sense to have the people from all three phases using that road and trying to take a little bit of the stress off from Lake Drive.
Rachel, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in now. Go ahead. Thank you. So I guess if we know what the next phase is gonna look like, whether or not there's gonna be access there, could be important, because obviously this is gonna happen at some point, but we don't know when.
So I don't own the land to the south. I am meeting with Joe next week to talk to him because he's just a good guy, good neighbor.
He's right behind you.
Oh, hi, how are you? So I'm not sure how you plan the roadway connection going through.
Just want to state your name and address. If you don't want to come up, we're on Zoom most of the time.
I'm Joe Meisner. My address is North 80 West 27720 Plainview Road. And my dad owns 70 acres. I own the center 10 acres of the section south of the proposed development here tonight. And we have been in preliminary discussions to sell the farm. Far as I knew, up to 2 years ago, our farm was zoned already for the R1. As you see, the farm years ago was put in with the Twin Pines development with, I had felt with the Waukesha, with their master plan they had years back. It just came to my attention that it's zoned A10 now. So I don't know how that all came about, but as of April of 2019, I had met with them that the farm was zoned for the 1 acre, so.
And we can't actually discuss that portion of your farm.
Correct, I
But
just
you're-
wanted to
but-
go and
Sure.
let you know where I stand on the farm, so.
Sure. So
So-
what the main point of what we're talking about right now is access to over the Center Oak.
Right,
So, and
to me, it's gonna be developed someday to the south.
Right.
And it makes sense to hook the roads together. Coming across, getting connection to Center Oak Road sometime, which our farm's got all the access on Plainview Road and on Center Oak Road, so. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when, I guess it all happens, so. I just wanted to go on record and tell you that, so thank you.
thanks. So we're right back to where we kind of started here. It's, as far as the feasibility of maybe putting a drive across from Marshall Drive there, how would that work in with the stormwater? I'm assuming that's where the best spot would be. Usually you want to do a intersection like that. Or if there was going to be access later, I mean, it's commission if the next phase were to have access to Center Oak. And that would
Wouldn't that be just exacerbating the problem that I think they're trying to relieve now, which is the first 2 phases of Twin Pines coming through the 3rd phase to get west? And if we just push that farther south, isn't that going to be even worse? It seems like we're kind of, in this development, we're kind of in the middle there, between Twin Pines and Plainview. It seems like the right place to put that access. But
what about working with Meisner to move I'm assuming where your storm pond is gonna be could potentially move a little bit south, but you're limited by your lot line. Is there potential you could do an easement with him for that stormwater pond, maybe share some stormwater between the 2 developments and then put that road in right by Marshall there?
So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. I never liked looking at when doing development.
It turned off on you. Battery dead?
Maybe the battery. The red light, I think the battery's dead.
Oh, there you go. You're
No,
good.
there you go.
It's working.
So looking at a development like this, God didn't put the land or the property lines there, right?
Come on up. I got one over there.
We got backup.
You can come up and talk up here in the meantime if you want.
I'm full of antibodies, so.
Me too.
So I guess one of the reasons to meet with Joe is, stormwater ponds themselves take up a lot of real estate. So depending on how amicable they would be, I wanted to talk to Joe of how we can combine the two so he gets more usable land when he develops. And also it doesn't pinch us as well, but for the purpose of this conversation, we don't own the land. I have no control over that, but he's a very reasonable person. If I can work with him to show an overall layout and how it's going to save him land, which obviously equates to, the sales price, right? It would make sense because when you build a stormwater pond, it's all in sloping. You just can't dig a hole, 15 feet straight in the ground. So.
Sure.
Thank you. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yeah. So you've got a few members here that don't care either way. Fire department wants a connection there. I guess I would recommend working with staff on this one. And I mean, we're not approving the conceptual plan tonight anyway. We're just feedback. So it's
I
just the
appreciate that.
rezone. So I think you've got some input from here. I know Merton is going to want that road.
Okay.
I do know that. But maybe there's some good that can come out of this on both ends and working with Meisner possibly.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
And I appreciate the time you spent on this. I know it's simple, but it obviously a lot of thought went
Sure.
into it. So thank you.
Any comments or questions on the rezone? Ed, you go to the rezone? Not good? Up in the air?
As far as commenting on the rezone, I have no problem with it.
Chad, questions, comments on the rezone? No, I'm okay. Brian? Becky?
I'm good.
Mark?
Good.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Mark.
Rachel, anything else on the rezone?
Nope.
That's probably the easiest part of it was the rezone.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a quick, on the positive side, 90+% of the subdivision is perfect. It's just the road, the access point.
Thank you.
We'll get over that. I'm sure our chairman and our other committees will get over that hill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like the way the entrance is changed off of Lake 5 Road. I think it's really going to look a lot better than the original plan.
Absolutely.
So the joint planning committee meeting did recommend approval of this rezone. Not hearing any opposition here. Is there a motion on the rezone?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I would move that the action on the request by applicant Joe Bukovic for MLG/PF Twin Pines LLC for updating lands on Lake 5 Road, LSBT 0171.995 for the following as a rezone from A10 Agricultural District to R1 Suburban Single Family Residential District and recommendation to Town Board of the same. Be approved.
All right, moved by Ed Nelson on that. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Chad. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item B then is discussion necessary action on the request by owner applicant Jody Jensen from Jensen Rocks Inc. for approval of the original site plan and plan of operation for Stone Wholesaler Warehouse to be located at North 69 West 25055 Indian Grass Lane, North Liz. I don't know what that is. Actually, LSBT 0225.999.009 in the M2 zoning district and recommendation to town board of the same. And Jody is here. Yeah, if it's not on. Absolutely. And we'll start off with the planner and then open it up to you. Go ahead, Rachel.
All right, I'll give a brief overview here. So this is a proposed new business just to locate in one of these multi-tenant buildings on Indian Grass Lane. This is on the south side. You can see here a location map on the slide. This is land that is zoned M2 industrial, and it has both town and county zoning. So I have discussed with the applicant prior to this meeting and just let her know that she needs to also work with Waukesha County to get approval of the site plan of operation, sort of a two-part approval here. And also in the packets, you could see applicant provided, we have diagrams existing for the building and just showing which of the units the business would be occupying. So this one is the fourth one in from the west end. The business itself, excuse me, I should, I'm jumping ahead a little here. But the business and the applicant, I'm sure, can describe it better than I can. It's the business. But this is a wholesale business for semi-precious stones and jewelry and kind of related items. So the business would just entail using this space for storage. They'd be installing a little bit of racking, some shelving to store inventory, but the inventory itself would be sold elsewhere. So my understanding is the business, she takes this out to trade shows off-site, other places. So there'd be a little bit of loading, unloading at this site, online sales as well. So this would include some office space within this area. And other than that, it's really just storage. The staff report and the application indicate the proposed hours Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. 2 full-time employees, up to 12 part-time employees. There's no outdoor storage proposed. The parking seems adequate. There are no designated stalls, is my understanding, for this business, but there are a lot of parking stalls available on site. And according to the landlord, there's adequate parking and there seems to be no issues with the tenants finding parking here at this time. There's no additional proposed signage. Trash would be handled with a dumpster, and similar to the other businesses on site, those would be located behind the building. And the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's my what I took away from our conversation. Just checking for any other things to comment on. Oh, I did request a comment from fire department, or indicated I believe I connected the applicant with fire inspector, but I have not heard any comments yet. So I don't know if there's any updates on that front. If so, it would be good to share those at this meeting. I was unable to reach out to Matt Mertens to see if he had any comments prior to this meeting in terms of follow-up. Those are the highlights in my view, and staff does recommend approval. And if you have questions for me, I'm available.
Before anybody goes, this is going to be a question, so I'm just going to ask it right now.
Okay.
Hours of operation. Are you planning to be there from any other times from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Absolutely, yes.
Just ask for 24/7.
Okay, 24/7. I need
Okay.
that.
I just want to get that out of the way right away.
Yes.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, I
So,
knew it was coming. So
My,
let's just get it out
my
of the way.
business is extremely unique. I have a very unique niche. So I'm a traveling stone wholesaler, and I supply rocks to metaphysical and new age stores, rock shops throughout the nation. We travel to 23 different states. And so the warehouse, if you will, is for doing inventory, and those part-time employees come in and they do inventory. There's never more than 4 to 5 employees in the warehouse or in at one time, but we have a variety of different employees that come in throughout. So we have different employees that travel, different employees that do video sales, different employees that do inventory. So we do have multiple employees, but they're all part-time. So we have maybe 5 at one time. At any given time would be the most. And then I travel with a traveling crew. There's 4 of us, and we travel. We're out of town 2.5 to 3 weeks out of the month. But because we load the car or we have the equivalent of an Amazon Prime cargo van. So because we load late at night or unload early in the morning or what have you, we are there all hours.
24/7 is perfectly
Yeah.
fine. I believe in this location. I don't believe anyone on the commission is going to argue that at all. Not
Regular
You don't have to worry
inventory
about it.
people are just 9 to 5.
It's
No.
you're in the area where if it's ever going to be this is where you want it. So
Right.
I don't think that's going to be an issue at all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The key is unique business.
We said the fire department has not weighed in on this yet.
No,
Any
I've been
exploding
out of
rocks?
town because I'm, again, traveling, and I haven't had the opportunity to get in touch with Waukesha or the fire department just because I've been so busy.
Any flammable materials, any exploding rocks?
Absolutely not. Just
Okay. I mean, they're
regular.
gonna need to chime in anyway, but they're
Yeah.
not doing anything
Nope.
crazy here, so. Okay. Ed, questions?
So there, realistically, okay, you're not, a person can't go up to this, when it happens, can't go up to your shop and walk in and buy something.
No, we're not a retail site,
Okay.
but we will,
Strictly wholesale.
occasionally, maybe twice a month, we might have one owner of a store that drives in from Illinois and will host them for the day, but it would be like a one-on-one situation where we sit with just the one person. And then we have a crew member, and we have a conference room, and they bring the stones in one by one and let the customer pick. And then we load all of their product after we've sat with them for 8 hours, having lunch or what have you. And they load all the product into their truck in the back through the bay door, and then they go. So yes, we'll have a customer occasionally, but never shoppers.
Okay. And outside of our chairman mentioning exploding rocks, you're not going to be carrying diamonds, are you?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I carry like large amethyst cathedral geodes and, ocean jasper palm stones and carnelian and fossils and clear quartz crystal.
I'm a fossil. Okay.
Welcome to my life.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Jed?
Nope, I'm okay with it.
Brian? Microphone.
When do you anticipate occupying the unit?
Frankly, I'm having the back painted right now. So as soon as possible.
The reason I ask is because you really should contact the county.
Oh,
Because you're in
absolutely.
a shoreline zoning district, even if it's interior, you still have to
Yeah.
sometimes they get a little backlog and you really can't occupy it or anything until you go through them. So I'm just kind of warning you ahead of time.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Becky?
I have no problem.
Mark?
No, all good.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Anything else from staff?
Nope.
So we have to approve this contingent, the fire department and Waukesha County, or just full out approval from us?
Oh yeah, I do recommend in the staff memo, some recommended conditions of approval. These are pretty standard, but they do include a fire inspection or non-objection from the fire department, as well as building inspector, Waukesha County, obtaining any other permits needed. And also the hours of operation. So I would modify, recommend as part of your motion, you would note that the hours of operation are expanded from what was indicated in the initial application. We can make sure that whatever is on file in the end is the correct version.
And can we just note on staff level, look at this on every applicant that comes through and just question it? Because it seems like we're always modifying this at the board table, and just look at these. And I mean, I knew right away when I seen this, we were gonna end up.
I'm so grateful for the help on
We
that.
can do
Thank
that.
you.
We can do that.
Yep.
All right. All right, so we'd be looking for a motion on this, and if it was a motion for approval, would be include the modification of the hours to 24/7 and approval of the fire department in Waukesha County. Does anyone wish to make a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the action on the request by owner and applicant Jody Jensen, Jensen Rocks, Inc., for approval of an original site plan and plan of operation for a stone wholesaler warehouse to be located at North 69 West 25055 Indian Grass Lane, Site N, tax number LSBT 0225.999.009 in the M2 zoning district, and recommendation to the town board of the same, with the modification to change of hours of operation to 24/7, with attachment of town planner recommendations and recognition of any rules through Waukesha County and fire department.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chad? Second by Chad. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. So what do I do in regard to Waukesha and the fire department? Do I have to submit something once that I've seen them?
Tomorrow, give Kathy Nicholas a call. She's our administrator and she will help you out with all of that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
This
good
is my
luck.
life dream. I really seriously appreciate you people.
Welcome to Lisbon.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good luck. Item C, discussion necessary action on the proposed update to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035 as required by Wisconsin statutes 66.1001 and recommendation to the town board of the same. All right. Where is,
Did you want Rachel to go through all the changes? Or are you looking to table?
we lost Lisa.
She's still here.
Lisa there? I don't see her on the meeting. Okay,
I
good.
am definitely here.
All right. I'm just looking through and I didn't see, there
It's
you
like,
are.
I'm seeing her, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm gonna call her. Okay, go ahead, Rachel. I mean, I'm assuming we want to go through this and talk about the red line changes. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, I will just say, and let me know what I can do is we could look at these slides or I could just pull up the documents in your packet. What we'd really like to do is make sure that this is ready for adoption at the next meeting. And so if you have any feedback tonight regarding these edits, things that we might want to change, you know, between myself and the town attorney and town staff, we can make it happen. So we covered earlier, a lot of these edits were already out there and we've, you know, reviewed them in brief at previous meetings or they were included in the packets. We do have some additional ones tonight proposed. I'm just going to pull up the packet here. Let's see. I think you'll be able to see this on the screen, but let me know if that is not the case.
Difficult to see on a screen because they all have to turn around.
Ah, yes. So hold on. So I'll stick with the slide for now. So we had, as far as table of contents, that was simply updated to reflect that we have a couple or one new exhibit. The plan currently has, it has multiple appendices and multiple exhibits. And so Appendix A, I mentioned, was the Waukesha County Park and Open Space Plan, just because that currently the town has an older county plan incorporated as an appendix. We thought we'd just update that with the current park plan that's on the county website. And it's confirmed to be their current plan. Then further down in the table of contents, it's at the very end, but that's where the list of exhibits can be found. And that's where the documents are attached to this plan that are really specific to, more specific to Lisbon, because this plan was, when it was created back in 2000, well, it took a few years, I guess 2006 through 2009. It was a very substantial public involvement process. Most of the plan really speaks to countywide data and countywide trends, includes, you know, development policies that are applicable in Waukesha County. But then to make the plan more specific to Lisbon, if I'm describing this correctly, I was obviously not here at the time, but the exhibits really serve to kind of create a little more local flavor, local, you know, locally specific information. So that's what we're trying to just give them enough of an update that this can get you a 10-year update for now, recognizing that, say, in 2022, when census data is available, Lisbon can do a much more substantial look at the comp plan. And that would be what Mrs. Otis was getting at earlier with a more substantial public involvement. You always have to notify the public, but that's where you'd get into like surveys and really combing through the policies in your plan, your future land use map. So that effort is planned to be done, but just waiting a couple of years before Lisbon takes that on. I mentioned the land use map. That is, again, nothing's proposed to be changed on the map, but this might look different from the one you see in your comprehensive plan currently because it's one that we just reprinted. I think the other one was created by someone else. It was a county map. So this uses the same categories and everything. It just a little bit of a different format. But this also reflects all of the amendments that have been approved in recent years. And so it should be your just current map that's up to date. That's what we're proposing for Exhibit B. And Exhibit C, we included in the packet a summary. I don't know if this would actually be part of your plan. I suppose that's a question for you as a commission. The summary was really created to put something online and in the packets to help the public understand what this update is about. So it describes the purpose of the update and that the town could just approve the current plan. What I did here, these red lines that are in the packet tonight, and this was labeled as additional text amendments proposed by town planner for consideration at the 2/11/21 public hearing. I did that to make clear that these pages are new content that has not already been on the website previously, so you could see what changes I'm recommending there. This might serve as sort of an executive summary, and maybe this could just be stuck in your plan, you know, after the cover page. That might make sense, or maybe this isn't necessary. It's more for the purpose of this meeting, you know, just to share information. That's all that page is about. And just scrolling down here. So we have exhibit. Excuse me, I've got to get through the packet here. Exhibit C is what I'm looking for, and that is trying to remember which packet page we're on. Okay, so Exhibit C, this is just saying the purpose and scope of the 10-year update. So we're trying to just have Exhibit C work for us to kind of describe what this 10-year update is, what it's not, and also share a little bit of more information about what Lisbon's been doing for the last 10 years, what's been happening in the community. So here we just describe that, you know, the plan includes a long-range vision document that's still being retained in the plan because it was important creation. You know, it's a snapshot in time of what the community went through in terms of a long-range visioning process that did discuss, you know, the long-range goal, doing more intergovernmental cooperation. And so here we just describe a little more the new agreements with Merton and Sussex. That's just meant to show that Lisbon has been implementing your current plan over the past decade and building on the agreements that you already had. I don't know if you want me to go into detail on that. I mean, the commission's aware of it, but these are just trying to show for the public in the comp plan a little bit of information about these agreements, the fact that they're out there, trying to tie these things together because so much effort has gone into you know, doing this work. And I just proposed some minor text edits here from what you would have seen last month, that the agreement with Sussex is for expanded municipal water and sanitary sewer, because you did already have some of that in the past, but this is just, you know, again, expanding on that it's located along key community corridors. As far as the future land use map, I just noted that, yes, you're attaching the current map to the plan right now, but it may be amended from time to time based on requests that you receive if you determine that to be suitable. We just saw a couple last month, in fact, so this is just referencing that process, you know, it happens and that the map can change. It's a dynamic thing, but it's just kind of a side note. We do talk about development trends in here in Exhibit C, so just saying that you've seen substantial, you know, building activity, about 30 building permits per year for new homes. Obviously, a lot of other types of permits get issued, but that urban and suburban style development, because a lot of Lisbon is neither urban nor rural, you've got things in between, and you've got kind of a little bit of everything. So that's what we want to reflect in this plan, is just that not everything is strictly rural. It's not quite urban. You do have suburban development, and there's not a lot of language in the plan that really speaks to that currently. So in a couple of places, I thought that might make sense to kind of use a language that more accurately reflects what's on the ground. I mentioned the new park and open space plan, or at least that Lisbon has been maintaining one. That's something that the comprehensive plan doesn't really get into. So yes, we're attaching the county plan, but I think the public should know that Lisbon also has a park plan and that deals with your plans for future facilities. So that's noted in here. A little bit of information about a town center that, concept planning was done and needs to be redone really in the future, but that's something that people in Lisbon have considered around the 164 corridor, kind of centrally located. That, that's a future potential up and coming part of town. And just what that kind of means, even though there's not, more work would have to be done there to really flesh that out. And then we added some language here. I recommend just including in Exhibit C the fact that you do plan to do a full thorough update in 2022, or at least starting at that time based on the census data release. So just so that this is kind of, a technical update to meet the statutory requirements. But again, you will have to take a bigger look at your plan at some point, and that's the intent. It's just that now is not quite the time, and makes a lot of sense. We also included a map in here. This is new from last month. This is just showing areas that have developed since about 2010. We had some map data from 2011, but also looked at 2010 aerial photos from the county GIS. And everything in orange that you see on this map, if you can, hopefully the colors are visible, but those show areas that have built out since that time, basically in the last 10 years. And there are other areas in blue that have some form of development approvals or things in progress that, some are proposed and not fully approved yet, but this is showing you where the development activity is. And that goes with this Exhibit C. The idea there is just, again, to say a lot has been going on in the last 10 years, and here's what that looks like. And then we get into the new edits. So in here, I'm just going to go quickly through the proposed changes that I managed to get together this week, working with town staff, just thinking through, are there other language in the plan that should reflect what we're doing with Exhibit C and more accurately describe the town. Chapter 2 is a chapter that has a ton of information. It's got a long list of goals, policies, and planning principles. So there's quite a lot in that chapter 2, and I think there's a lot of value to it. What it also includes is information on just trends and key issues and opportunities for Lisbon. There were a few places in here where you see this seemed kind of like redundant language, but we don't want to play up the urban and rural. Again, there's some things that don't neatly fit those categories. So this is just saying that, you want to preserve existing development areas and, that are obsolete and deteriorating. It doesn't really matter if it's both urban and rural. You want to do that regardless of what the space is. It's just that's a wordsmithing, just cutting out some language that didn't seem particularly helpful. We've got planning objectives. You can see most of this content is really unchanged. Just try to scroll through here a little faster. Development guidelines, policies for environmentally sensitive areas. This said urban and rural development should be directed away from steep slopes. Here we're just modifying it to say development should be directed away from steep slopes. Doesn't matter what kind it is, protect the steep slopes. And you're going to see that, repeated here in these red lines. But for ag, natural, and cultural resources, this is a paragraph relating to park standards. So here it had some strange language kind of indicating that, well, the standards have to be worked out for parks with sewer pack and local communities and this and that. It seemed like language that was maybe left in there from a, very broad planning process that involved a bunch of agencies. Here we're just saying Lisbon maintains a 5-year park and open space plan. Boom, people can look at that plan if they want to see the specifics for Lisbon. This one's relating to soils, again, direct development, regardless of what kind. It doesn't have to be rural or urban. It's protect your steep slopes, make sure the soils are suitable. And then that covers more suburban style too, development that's not 5-acre lots, it's any kind. residential development, minimize conflicts with adjacent farming activity. And here we cut out a couple mentions of the word rural because it's just, you want to do that for any kind of residential and minimize conflicts between different land uses. And in here, there's a statement on, this is page 2-36, a statement about suburban style density residential development. Instead of be limited to areas committed to subdivision plats or certified surveys. Well, in reality, you're usually asked to comment on something that is not already platted or certified survey mapped. So, you can do that, but where you find it to be consistent with other development and resource protection goals in your comp plan, you might decide to approve that. This is just, again, reflecting how that actually plays out. And here we have some more standards. This is in the land use section of chapter 2. This is about maintaining rural character. We're saying specifically you do that through protecting woodlands and wetlands, but also open space within developed areas. That's something that came out in the survey from back in 2006, that with the way that rural character was defined was actually quite broad, and it did account for some developed areas. You can still have that. This was kind of just trying to tie that back together with another component of your comp plan. Development density. This is describing the reason to limit some areas to more the 5-acre lots. It's minimizing traffic volume on rural highways. That just, I don't know if that seemed as relevant. That's, those are county highways where those things are occurring. So maybe that's more appropriate for the county. I don't know. And again, here, preserving open space and rural character. Here, decided to say natural amenities. That seems a little more in keeping with the way you do that. And if you have subdivisions proposed, the lots might not be 5 acres, so it's not fitting that rural definition, but you do have outlots, you have open spaces. So this can kind of account for a variety of ways that that the subdivisions might look. Scrolling down a little further. There's a lot in here, and I tried to only include the excerpts from these chapters that help you see the context of like where the red lines are located, because there's not much that we're actually changing, but the chapters themselves can be quite lengthy. Chapter 7, this is regarding implementation of the plan. You can see there's a lot of content in here. This is describing implementation recommendations for rural development areas. So this, if you recall in the future land use map, when we refer to rural, it's really these areas mapped in white. Those are the areas that are limited to the 5-acre or more density category. So there are some places in the town where this would apply. And this is saying instead of preserving rural character, we want to respect the area character. So saying planning and zoning should be carried out so as to do this. It describes what rural development areas are and the kinds of things that they include. But this is recognizing that some areas are more of a transition. You might be next to a subdivision that's existing. Well, if those are smaller lots, and in some cases they are, and they might have been platted decades ago, but are they truly rural if they're not meeting that 5-acre threshold? We're just trying to say, look, wherever you're having development, respect the area character. You have to account for what's around it. And that's going to vary depending on where in Lisbon the property is located. Down here, a third recommendation for rural areas is that residential clusters be located to be visually screened from public roadways. And that just added located or buffered. So maybe, you might not have a choice of how to locate it, but I think there is options as well for buffering that just kind of expands how you can screen the residential lots. And then about rural vistas, well, any vistas, there might be some vistas that you could see development, but you have good views in the town. You might want to preserve that. It doesn't have to be rural. It's just, is it a quality vista, something that you care about? Fourth, this is again related to the rural areas. Cut out the word rural, but need to be consistent with the character of the surrounding area. And this, specified that these areas are suitable for things like animal hospitals and clinics, riding stables. It just felt like that was a little limiting, given that you do have other options, and it's hard to anticipate exactly what might get proposed in a given place. So wanting, you have all these other policies and things in your plan to fall back on when reviewing a development proposal. So this didn't seem like the place to get that specific. That's more the role of your zoning ordinance. And fifth, this is similar, talking about residential and compatible uses, just making sure that these things are compatible when you have agriculture and residential near each other, which of course happens a lot. And saying that instead of saying potential agricultural uses include traditional farming, hobby farms, and community supported agriculture, well, we know what's an agricultural use. Those to me were obvious. There's no need to spell them out, but I thought it might be better to say land in these areas often serves as a transition between environmental corridors and more developed areas. That's kind of describing where your rural areas are located. And that if land is not used for farming, it may be most suitable for recreational facilities and access. That's seems to be what this was already saying, but it was saying that land not used for farming should be kept free of development, and that I wasn't sure if that really is going to apply in every case. So it seemed a little bit, I don't know, prescriptive without knowing about the specific property. And that's really the types of decisions that you make, on a regular basis. And in a couple of places, you'll see there's a reference to density bonuses here, increasing densities from 3.5 to 5 residential acres per unit. I just thought that might have been flipped around, because if you're increasing density, you're actually dropping the number of acres. So that seemed like a typo. Oops. And then chapter 9, this is, we get into land use. This is implementation for urban areas. Again, mostly no changes here. Okay, another section on implementation for rural development areas. This is the same types of edits we made elsewhere. So you had to look through the plan and say, if we make one edit in one chapter, a lot of that language is repeated elsewhere. So you want to just be consistent throughout the entire plan. So these are the same exact edits we just went through in the chapter 7. Yep, that's exactly repeating. So the policies for rural areas, that's the nature of the new edits added this week. And I'm definitely looking for any feedback if you think those are appropriate, if they match how you want the comp plan to guide your decisions in the future, because that's something I have to look at if there is a proposed rezoning or a future land use map amendment. We have to kind of look through those things and see if that makes sense. But I should leave it there. I've been talking a lot, and curious what you all think.
Comments from the board? We'll go backwards. Mark?
No, they look good, Rachel, really good, actually, I think.
Thanks, Mark.
Brian? Good.
A lot of wordsmithing and everything in there. I appreciate it. Looks good.
Ed?
Rachel, I love a good map. Thank you very much for development since 2010. It really outlines how the town is changing. And that further segues into the multiple paragraphs in the document that you've been working on. And obviously ask us to look at. No further comments. Great
right.
job.
So we'll bring this back then at the next meeting with these changes that have been implemented. And there'll be another public hearing at that meeting for a chance for public comment on it. And possibly at that meeting, if everything looks good, it could be recommended to the board at the next meeting.
We won't do another public hearing.
There will not be another
No,
public.
He took care of it. Yeah.
Okay. But there'll be citizens' comments at that meeting, which could be used the same as essentially. So we'll have time to have comments on it at that point in time. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rachel.
Yep, thank you all.
Move on to item 4 again, or back to item 4, unfinished business, which is discussion necessary action regarding the proposed amendments to various sections of Chapter 11 of the Town Zoning Code related to conditional use permits due to a recent change in state law.
Catch my breath here. So what we have in the packet tonight, let me just make sure I've got this in the right order. I did provide you with an updated memo and table that I had promised and just could not get this together in time for the previous meetings. The thought was putting this table with all the different zoning districts and land uses that it could be part of the zoning code. However, even after getting it together, it seemed like might not be a good idea to actually include it in your code. So we just put this in the packet for reference. It might help with the discussion. It was quite a challenge to pull that together, but that's in there. We can discuss. It does help see where different things are permitted. You have red lines, and the red lines are a comparison to the version that was presented in January. So it's not red lines versus current day code. It's just the red lines versus last month. But we can discuss those changes as well. Let me pull up my, this is where slides might be helpful as well. I might have to toggle a little between the slides just so I can get the questions to you. So I will say there are a handful of questions that are in the staff memo in your packets, but once the land use table came together, I realized I had a few more questions and discussed these with Michael. So the slides will show, and I apologize I didn't get these into a memo format, but I'm just hoping we can walk through them. It's just a handful of extra questions that if we can get you answers on these tonight, hopefully it's easy enough that you could potentially approve this ordinance tonight or recommend approval to the board. If you need more information or need to see it in a different format, we can bring it back next month, but I'd like to see if we could actually get through it tonight and then get this thing finalized. I think we're really just about done here. So I would note there were also public comments received. I don't think we included those in the packet, but they were distributed last month, but they weren't received in time to be, I think, read out loud. So those were considered as part of these, and some of these questions that are just coming back to you guys because of those public comments. So the edits this time are primarily that you'd see in the red lines are really thanks to Michael, largely doing good wordsmithing, taking out, making things more consistent when you're talking about numbers, writing them out as numbers versus all in words, more consistent phrasing, references to different agencies, other sections of the ordinance, just making sure that when we do reference these other things that we're doing it in the same way throughout this section of code, at least it cleans it up nicely, I think. We made some other changes based on directions from you guys last month. And also double checked statutes. Michael looked at that for telecommunication facilities. And let's see here. So some questions, section 4C, 5 and 6. This was relating to the approval process. And this came up also in public comments a couple of different ways. So this question of deadlines for Plan Commission and Town Board to act on a conditional use permit. The current code says the Plan Commission has to act within 60 days, Town Board within 90 days. That's, I guess we're presuming that that's 60 and 90 days from a complete application. At an earlier Plan Commission meeting, we were directed, although it wasn't unanimous, but the decision was, well, make everything one so you don't have two different deadlines. I think we had changed the draft to be 90 days, whether it's Plan Commission or Town Board, because Town Board does not see every conditional use either. So most of these are approved by the Plan Commission, by your ordinance. And so we thought just make one deadline period, but then there's no actual requirement that the town have a deadline to act on these things. So in the current draft, the text has no deadlines for Plan Commission or Town Board. And just wanted to check with you on, is that desired? So this is 4C5. I'm going to pull up the code so I can see what we're reviewing.
So does the statute require us to do it in a reasonable time or something, that there's no specific set days?
It sounds like there's not. I asked Michael that, and
No, the statute doesn't require anything, nothing like what you would see for a CSM or plat that requires, 90 days, nothing like that. So, yeah, it honestly is something that's kind of surprising that you would expect to see something like that in there, but no.
Well, I think the town has done a good job of trying to act promptly on the things that come before it while I've been here. And I think putting these artificial numbers in there doesn't serve us, doesn't serve any value to anybody. It just puts us under the gun that we end up having to call special meetings or do extraordinary things every once in a while. And I guess I'd be in favor of just leaving them out.
Everybody else good with that? Everybody's in agreement there.
Okay. Another question was section 4F regarding amendments to conditional uses. This is an interesting one, and I actually recently faced this question. So if you have a operation currently that is a conditional use in your zoning code, and they want to make some kind of change to it, does that require, it generally will require a site plan of operation amendment in any case, but does it also require a CUP amendment? And that's just important to how we process it, what the public hearing requirements are. You know, are there modifications, like if someone's just changing hours of operation or the number of employees, does that automatically trigger a full site plan amendment and a conditional use amendment? Or are there situations where you think we should specify that it's just a site plan amendment? Or do you care? Do you want to just leave it as is?
Let's start on that one.
I guess I can see it both ways. I mean, if it's a change of ownership for the site plan of operation, having to have them pay for and us notice and everybody get together for a CUP hearing and all that doesn't make a lot of sense. But if there's going to be a substantial change to the site plan of operation, there are some of those plans that certain changes, I think it would be appropriate to change, you know, hear the conditional use at the same time. So I'm not sure how to do that.
Thank you, Mark. It can be tricky. You'd have to specify what would constitute a minor enough change or what's the threshold. So.
Ed, anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Chad? Brian? Becky?
No.
Okay.
All right.
I
Good
think-
with that one?
So I was just thinking while Mark was talking, and we could do something and not have to go to a conditional, use for a site plan of operation. If it requires any engineering changes, we must go to we must amend the conditional use as well. But I think a hourly might not be at the threshold that would require a CUP to be amended.
How's everybody feel about
Could we put in some verbiage that the changes to the site plan of operation may require a conditional use permit process at the town's discretion or something along those lines, so that someone can make an appropriate decision as opposed to us trying to figure out everything that might happen in the future now?
We could make that a requirement by a decision by the zoning administrator.
Yeah, and currently that would be, the zoning administrator would be the plan commission, right? So that would come before you guys. If someone has a proposal, they might have to come back the following month if you decide that, yes, they do need to amend their CUP.
everybody's good?
No, I hate to have somebody come twice before us. I don't think that's good policy. I think we should be able to tell them what they need to do So I'm not sure how to do it, but I guess, you know, if somebody comes before us, that it would seem to me that somebody at the town hall could say, oh, this is just a change in hours or ownership on a site plan. You're not going to have to do the CUP thing. I don't know how
Yeah.
you write that stuff down, but have them come before us and then tell them, well, now you have to come back next month because we got to do the full CUP. I don't know. I'd like to get as few hearings and as few appearances for people as possible.
The only thing I'd say to that, Mark, is that in a CUP, when you're talking like hours of operation, I mean, there's a reason why it's a conditional use permit. And hours of operation could be something that could be a very touchy subject, especially once you've already had public hearings for that CUP, and then you come back and want to change certain things like hours. That's directly what the Plan Commission is here for.
Yeah, if it involves noise, for example, that could be, it's hard to predict.
Under normal situations with a plan of operation, I 100% agree. If it fits the zoning and everything else, I think staff should be able to go through that 100%. But on conditional uses, I think this is where it gets a little touchy.
I mean, I guess if we know upfront that every one of these plan of operations is going to require a CUP process, they're only coming before us once. It just seems like more work and more cost to get everybody to, you know, public hearing, and, you know, and then we're going to say, well, yeah, we're changing because we bought the place. But I'm okay with it. I don't have strong feelings one way or another on this. My intent was reduce the number of times people had to come to us and reduce the cost and speed up the ability to move forward with these projects.
I was just going to pose this quick question. I mean, I haven't been working with the town long enough to know, but how often are site plan of operation amendments coming to the Plan Commission when we've got an existing CUP and thus creating a amendment to the CUP? I mean, I feel like it's not a very frequent occurrence. So if we leave it in, we kind of cover our bases and we're a little bit more protective from the town side. And then if we get to the point where we're suddenly seeing several people coming back to amend an hours of operation component of the site plan of operation and having to do the same thing for CUP, maybe we revisit it, but maybe we're just leaving in for now. Just another thought.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like that's making sense.
Yep.
And I do appreciate what Mark's saying here, and I don't disagree with it. It's just CUPs are CUPs for a reason, and I think there's certain things I wouldn't care if staff made a decision on, but another Plan Commission member might. It's just tough to take everything into consideration right now and right here.
And that's fine. That could always be revisited in the future. If you, like Michael said, if you see that that's being a problem or that applicants are being burdened in a way that you didn't anticipate, and maybe that's just not a problem right now.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
Does this also cover the fact if a person, the original plan of operation or the CUP, if they are in violation, in other words, if they're doing something totally different than what they said they were originally proposed to the Planning Commission?
We can always review those.
Okay.
I think there's another part of this ordinance that contemplates that exact scenario.
Okay.
Yes.
That seems to be a problem historically for us. Not many, but when it does happen. Anyway, no further comment.
Okay. So it sounds like we should leave that one for now. Leave it as is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Number 3, section 4H2, this relates to animal hospitals, vet clinics, etc. I forgot to mention, we did get comments back from county staff on the proposed amendments to this ordinance. So several of those were good fodder for discussion among our staff team. And this is just one, I wasn't quite sure how to deal with this, but Sandy Shear commented that at the county, they include doggy daycares in this category. And so I don't know if Lisbon wants to do that as well, or I know that's as you could see, maybe in the land use table, if that's useful, but there are there's a lot of different treatment with regard to animal hospitals, kennels. It's not a straight, up or down, is it allowed or not? It's some places allow the animal hospitals, not a kennel, and vice versa. So I wasn't eager to just take that on and draft red lines without just checking with you if you think that should be. Is that akin to I guess there's hobby kennels. That seems different than a doggy daycare. I'm not super clear on the distinctions. And has that come up very much in Lisbon in the past?
What is doggy daycare?
When you go to work, you take your dog to a daycare center.
Okay. Rachel?
Yes.
As we become more urbanized, which we are rapidly doing, I can see that that's going to be an issue. More people, more dogs.
That is true.
So did I understand you right, that the county considers all of those as a sort of a similar operation? The animal hospital, veterinary clinics, commercial kennels, doggy daycare, and pet sitting, those are pretty much all considered the same so far as zoning is concerned?
That was the nature of the comment. I actually didn't get to look through this county zoning code or follow up with Sandy yet. I apologize. I meant to do that this week to get clarity on, do they distinguish in different districts at the county level? I think the comment was just, we include dog rescues in this category too. So
Is there some distinguishing factor about a dog rescue as opposed to a doggy daycare, or?
I think the rescues are like people who in their home would take dogs in, right, from sometimes far away, but it's kind of a temporary thing. That's different from a doggy daycare, which might be like an actual business where, pet sitting. That's like you just need someone to babysit your dog while you're working or whatever, traveling. Dog rescue seems to be a different thing where you're trying to find a home for a dog. I think that's my understanding, but.
I think that's right. The rescue.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I don't have any problem lumping them all into the same category. I think the determining factor there needs to be how many dogs is somebody housing at one time at their place. I mean, why they're doing it, whether it's daycare or a veterinary clinic or whatever, really doesn't make that much difference, I don't think, to me. And a dog rescue where somebody has one dog in their house, I don't know that there's anything special. I'm concerned about that. But if they're rescuing 15 dogs all at the same time, then why wouldn't they be considered the same thing as a kennel?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just checking the ordinance for definition. I thought I had this written down somewhere and I just don't have that.
At a residence, if you're going to rescue, or if you're going to have more than 3, or I think in Lisbon's case, 5 dogs, you have to get a kennel license. And so those are just people in their homes. They are not considered a business. It's just they just got a litter of dogs, and as they're waiting to pass them along, they get a kennel license to do just that. So it's a different area. It's not a CU area. It's actually just a DSPS requirements.
Thank you. So maybe your code is fine as is on that. I don't know that that's even a problem that needs fixing.
Yes.
Yes.
Good to go.
Okay. Then we have one on 4H10, the land use called commercial truck parking. This one, we had discussed in the past whether you'd keep the 3-acre minimum lot size. You said yes. But as it's currently drafted, it says that, I think because the 3 acres mattered, we decided to edit out the distinction between whether the lot is a plat CSM lot or unplatted. Because it seemed like if you need 3 acres, you need 3 acres. Why should it matter if it's unplatted? You're allowed to have a 2-acre unplatted parcel and could still have commercial truck. It just didn't quite make sense the way it was worded. I can pull this up here, but the current edit would just remove the distinction and say you need 3 acres, period. That's that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Is anybody talking or is it, you just fine with that?
Good with it.
Okay.
Correct, everybody's good?
Yep.
Good to go.
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Awesome, thank you. And, okay. Oh, these are still, okay, from the memo, the last couple questions here. Limited family businesses. I did look at these a little bit, looked at the definition of that versus home occupations. County staff had noted that they allow these. Okay, Lisbon's code says that this is if it's in a residence or a detached garage or a, what is it, an attached garage or a detached accessory building. Any of those scenarios, you could classify something as a limited family business, which is a conditional use. Sandy's comment was that if it's located within a residence, it would be considered a home occupation and not require a conditional use. So that just seemed to be a slight difference between Lisbon and the county, how this gets treated, which might not be bad. I didn't know if that was intentional. Michael and I looked at that. The best we could determine is that limited family businesses, they're allowed in homes, but the difference might be that they can be a little more visible from the outside. Like you could have a sign out, for example, where a home occupation, that's something you don't really see or notice from the outside. So maybe there's a good reason to have that distinction. Meaning your code is okay as is. I didn't propose a change along these lines, but that was just one of the comments I got that was interesting.
I'm good with the current code. I'd rather see them as a conditional use, whether they're in the home or not.
I'm gonna agree with Mark on this.
I agree. I like the way it states right now.
Keep it current.
Okay. Thank you. And then this other use, section 4H24, public and semi-public buildings and uses. We had discussed that double offset requirement and then ended up taking that out, thinking it doesn't seem necessary because you could have a lot of different uses could fall under this category. Sandy thought the intent was to keep public uses that could have a lot of activity and noise and other types of factors just further back from the lot lines. So I just thought I'd bring that back to you and say, do you, in light of that, comment, do you still feel like leaving out the double offset requirement and just sticking with normal setbacks? Knowing that you still have flexibility under the conditional use to require more if you think a particular use is, could be troublesome, then you could always require more setback. I think that was the thinking that we discussed last month.
Thoughts?
I'm good keeping it out.
Want to require that?
Leave it out.
Hard set.
I go with the majority, yes. Let's not.
It just gives us a little more flexibility.
We can always require it if need be.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, and then some more questions that came up. Just want to tick through these, and then I have in a later slide kind of questions that could take the form of a motion if you think the draft is ready. So far, no other changes have come up, so we're cruising here. Commercial daycares. So one thing I noticed in this again relates to this public and semi-public buildings use. That's a land use category that allows a lot of different things. Just getting the definition ready here. So this is, there's only one district where I saw some additional specifying. This is one of the ones, section 28 for your BP Business Park District. That was recently amended in 2020. And that section specifies that commercial daycare centers, so that's a land use that's technically under this broader umbrella of public and semi-public uses. That's the only time, like I don't actually see commercial daycare centers listed in your code in the various districts. It's because it's assumed to be under this other category. So that was interesting because I often see daycares listed, explicitly, so you know exactly where you would allow them and not. Hasn't been an issue to my knowledge, but I would think that in section 28, you have this language that I show here on the slide in red. It's that commercial daycares, and this is because it's in a commercial district, that they have to be at least 300 feet from a gas station, from underground gas storage tanks or other explosive material, that shouldn't be located where air pollution and dust, gases, particulates could endanger children, that it should be located in an area where noise should not endanger children, similar with traffic, also adequate parking and circulation. I kind of like that district, the BP district, speaks to daycare centers and the unique kind of protections you might want to have for children. So I just wanted to ask you, do you think that that should be included in section 4 so that any daycare center, if it's, no matter where it's located or regardless of district, maybe these types of standards apply? Or do you think that's reasonable or desirable?
How does everybody feel putting this in?
And then I think we're solving a problem we haven't had.
Right, and I think some of it is really hard to measure, that it may affect the child's health is really difficult to measure. So you could get a parent that decides that, oh, well, this daycare can't be here because, my child gets sick of some kind of air quality.
That's a good point.
What were you gonna say, Mark?
No, I'm good with that. But as we were reading through this and as I read through it before, I was trying to think if I had heard of a problem with a daycare under any of these circumstances anywhere at all, ever. And I couldn't think of one. I mean, I'm not saying there hasn't been one. I mean, certainly this language came from somewhere. Somebody had a problem at some point in time. But being close to a gas station, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might be looked on as an amenity in some ways too. I'm not sure about even keeping some of this language in that district. I certainly don't want to move it to others.
The intent of the gas station, I'm sure, is for an explosion. But
yeah, well, yeah.
I think there's a problem here. I can tell you a few other places that I've seen daycares that wouldn't be allowed under this, but not to throw any other communities under the bus, but wow. How's everybody, I mean, you want this included? Do you feel we need it, don't need it? Chad shaking no.
I don't want to include this.
Brian?
It gets too specific and it holds us liable, basically. I don't think it should go in there.
Ed?
I go along with Mark and Chad. It's a discussion. It's important. I certainly don't want a daycare built near sorry, Chad, a major gas pipeline. But.
Well, it's funny you say that because we have one of those running through the town.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I think it's a discussion for another time.
Well, this is the time, Ed.
I passed then. I'm.
Okay. Brian? Don't need it.
Yeah.
Becky?
What did Brian say? You agree with what?
I said whatever you say.
Whatever I say. I'm not saying anything because I don't know.
That's good for you, Brian.
He agreed with Mark and Chad that it's probably not needed.
Oh, okay. Then I agree also with that.
Okay. Let's pop that out.
All right. Thank you for considering though. Sometimes you see these anomalies. It's like it's the one place it pops up in the whole code and you go, what, why here? Is this important elsewhere or not? So, all right. A quick one here. Well, hopefully quick. Truck terminals, warehousing, and distribution centers. That is listed that way in the BP district, again, your business park district, as a conditional use. It says, well, the old section for a current code, it had that language about within section 4 saying, well, it's permitted here, it's permitted there, it's prohibited, it's conditional. We have stripped out all that language right now and just are referring and say, if you want to know where it's permitted or not, you got to look at the zoning district. But what's interesting here with this one, it said, so this, I mentioned the old section 4 language because that tells me maybe what the intent was, or just, and then when we make the table, you can kind of see, does that actually play out? It says, otherwise it's permitted where listed for the district. Then I see another in M1. So I actually don't see truck terminals listed in many places. Here I'm going to look at this table, but the M1 district does list transportation terminals as a permitted use. And so I just thought, how is that different? Is a transportation terminal, is that like a truck terminal? It seems like a big use, and I didn't even know if does that make sense in your M1 district? That's kind of a question for another day, but M1 and M2, are we talking about the same land use here? Have you ever dealt with this land use before? Could just be, over time, these things get kind of worded funny. Might not have been intentional.
So you're asking, is the transportation terminal the same as a truck terminal?
Yes, that's kind of one question. And then whether it's the same or different, should this truck terminal use only be a conditional use allowed in BP? Because I see no other districts that allow it. So including your M1, M2, Q1, although those districts, the industrial and quarry districts, have the really general land use terms that you can kind of use to cover a lot of different proposals.
I gotta say, Rachel, I think I'd be asking you that question.
Okay. I was worried somebody would say that. Come on now.
Truck is
Okay.
truck terminal, transportation terminal can include trains, buses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a definitions portion somewhere,
Yeah,
isn't there?
it should be described in definition somewhere.
You're going to send the planner back to the definitions. Touche. That's usually how I get other people, and they go, what? It's like, you got to read the definitions. Oh, unfortunately, there is no terminal for transportation terminal listed in the definitions. It did not help me.
Tough to reference it if we don't have it in there.
It's true. So this might not be a big deal. Again, yes, if I was pressed, I could make some determination if somebody came forward with something. But in my view, transportation terminals sounds like a much broader use because it could be different kinds of, vehicles. But that's permitted in M1, whereas if you want a truck terminal or, a distribution thing, you've got to go through the conditional use process.
Well, this could be an issue though, because we have a major 2 lines of trains going through the town. We've actually got a potential terminal down off of Duplainville there. And I think that, I'm not sure what the zoning is over there. This might be an issue. Terminal.
Looking up another definition here.
Location where freight and passengers either originate, terminate, or are handled in the transportation process. So it means everything.
Intermodal, container.
Mm-hmm. And then the basic reason for the question is if you think that you want to list, say, truck terminals or transportation terminals as a conditional use in other districts, we could just add that as, some other edits and say, okay, in this, that, and the other district, you want to, expressly list it as a conditional use so that you allow it. You could do that, or you could just say, well, it's under the unspecified uses or something like that. But
I mean, your question is the transportation terminal has permitted use but not clear? Is it the same thing? That's what you're asking.
yeah,
So do we want it to be the same thing? If we do, we need to word it that way. So where do we have I guess we have to look, see where we have M1 in the town.
That's right.
These is M2.
M1.
I don't know if we have any M1.
I see some along a railway over to Plainville Road.
Exactly what I'm talking about. And that's permitted then, though.
That's right. And I don't want to propose that any, thing that actually exists on the ground out there should suddenly become a conditional use. Unless you think there's a, good reason for that, but that could impact a landowner. So since I don't know that, all the different uses out there, I'm getting there, but.
I can tell you what was originally proposed over there is not what they ended up doing.
Is it possible that that M1 specification came from thinking about some specific proposal, so that got added in?
This was pre-2007, what we need Jane for. I mean, a truck terminal and a transportation terminal are not the same thing, then so I guess we can establish the fact that they are not the same.
Yeah, I suppose transportation is really more like you're traveling, right? Those intermodal, the stuff that you guys are talking about.
Well, it says transportation terminals is anything, according to the definition online, and that would fit with what's being used down on that M1 on New Plainville Road, but I mean, that's permitted use in M1, so that's not even applicable to what we're doing here right now. We'd have to change the zoning if we wanted to change that.
Yeah.
But I guess it's safe to say truck terminals and transportation terminals, we are not viewing as the same thing.
Okay, that helps.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
We have consensus.
All right, and you're fine with the truck terminals use only being listed in BP right now? Knowing that if we had to, even if it was proposed in one of your industrial districts, we could make a determination at that time if it made sense.
Well, I mean, it looks like M1 it would be permitted in, but in BP it would just be, so in BP you could just have a truck terminal, but in the M1 a transportation terminal, which
Oh, yes.
could include a truck terminal.
That
But
makes sense. And then M2 allows whatever M1 allows, so it just carries forward into those more intensive districts. Okay. I'm good on that if you guys are. Sorry to, don't want to belabor that. Thank you though. Factory outlets. This is something listed as a conditional use in BP. Again, I thought it's otherwise permitted where listed for the district is what the current code says. It's not actually listed in M1 and M2, I don't think, but those districts have such broad, some broad descriptions for different land uses that if someone were to propose one, I would imagine we'd process it that way. So this is a question of if you're okay with that, or if you actually want to specify that they are, add them as conditional uses in the your M1, M2 districts.
How do you feel? Maybe we put a factory outlet next to railroad track, I guess. I don't care.
That's the same for the next one too, general sale of industrial products. It just seemed like BP gets called out as more restrictive. I think that's intentional probably.
Yeah, I was. Okay with it. Anybody you want to change anything there or leave it alone? Everybody wants to leave that one alone.
Okay. So same for both of those, right? The sale of industrial products and factory outlets. They sound very similar, but.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Gas stations and C-stores, just wanting to check should those be allowed in B3? Would that be your intent to not allow them? Looking at the table, they're towards the top of the land uses listed in red. So those are all your CUPs. It says that these are conditional use in B1, B2. The B3 district is silent on these. Then it's conditional again in B4, BP, M1, and M2. So I just saw kind of a gap with your B3 district and wondered, would you allow a gas station or C-store there? Or is it are you purposely trying to keep them out of that district? Or is it that you would allow it and just depends?
Where do we have B3?
B3, not a ton of places over by Lake 5 Road and MD, abutting Merton.
What's our leads?
Lake 5 and MD. So like right next to where the gas station is?
Yes, well, oh, sorry, that's Hatch. That looks like B. Sorry, gotta look at this map on the wall here. Yeah, you've got some B2 and B3 right in that area. But that's, currently the Quick Trip and the Mary Custom Storage.
It was what? I'm sorry.
Oh, there.
Oh,
That's where the B3 is?
Yes, there's some B3 and some B2 in that area.
Right next to Mary's Custom Storage and Quick Trip. I'm assuming we're gonna wanna be having gas stations included in that, being there's one there.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you don't have much B3. So probably not a problem. I just thought I'd check with you on that.
We want to
You're
add?
adding it in, correct? Yeah, you're adding it.
We currently are not, so the draft text does not add it to that district, but we could easily add it to B3.
We need B3 in there.
Okay. Okay, and then the other one, hotels, motels. I was curious if B4 would allow that one. Similar here, this is in the, where am I looking? Okay, the last page of the land use table. This is in the conditional uses. Hotels and motels are listed as conditional in B2 and B3. B4 district is silent on those. Doesn't mean they're not allowed, but doesn't really clearly give a green light. And it's permitted use in BP Business Park. But I noticed that the B4 district does allow private clubs and resorts and business park shopping centers. In my view, it seems compatible with hotel motel, so.
I'd say add it.
But B4 is also because we should, looking at where it is mapped, it's not in many places, but the east end of the lead site has it, as well as the Quarry Corners area.
Yep.
Do we lose Mark?
Oh, I'm here. I can't hear what's being said. Pretty quiet.
My mic off, sorry, Mark. I didn't even want to hear myself. You good with adding it?
Ouch.
Not good?
I can go either way. I don't think I'd really like to see it over by Leeds, but Quarry Corners would be fine. So either way is fine with me.
Well, then
So
you
if-
could leave it out because you do have that, your hands get tied a little bit with conditional uses.
So it is one thing we need to consider is if you do put it in there, you have to give evidence why you shouldn't have it there if somebody requests it. Right.
Correct.
Not as easy to say no as it used to be.
To me, the hotel motel aligns with the private club, resorts, business park, shopping centers.
We're not gonna have a problem with this ever in the history of Lisbon, to be quite honest.
I don't see it happening.
I'm being optimistic here.
I don't think anyone's gonna build a high-rise motel.
Yeah, I don't think we got this coming.
All right.
Microphone.
We just did the gas stations. Can you tell me all the business districts that's in? Now that we just talked about it, the ones we added. I just want to make sure we got them all in.
Yeah, gas stations, I only heard adding it to the B3 district. It's already specified as a conditional use in most of your other business districts.
So it's in B2, B3, B4.
Yeah, it's in B1, B2, B4, BP, M1, and M2 today.
Okay. And
But it's Yeah, B3 is just silent on that. So what I heard tonight is add that in as a conditional use to that district.
Yep, just wanted to double check. Thanks.
Yep. Then hotels, motels, it sounded like maybe a mixed opinions. Do we leave that alone for now?
Yeah, I think it's.
Well, hold on. I'm just sticking with the B districts. So anywhere we have a business district, we're gonna allow a gas station. I'm wondering if this was done intentionally in one district, so we could have a business district but not allow a gas station. I can't. Yeah. Right, but you have to give evidence why you're gonna deny it then, no? You can't just. Is B4 have it? Did we say B4 had gas stations too?
Yes, they do.
EP does or doesn't?
It does.
So every single business district we have, there would have to be evidence given of why a gas station would not go there. Right now, B3 doesn't, but if we add it to B3, so B3 would be our only out in any case. And actually, I just looked at the, Mary's is B3, but Quick Trip is B2. Which is BP. B4. Keep thinking it's BP because that was what we designated with Sussex, was the BP districts. I guess the only thing that's changed from before to now is we would have to give evidence to deny it. So do you want to have one district where it's just not allowed or not?
And it's not listed as prohibited either. So it's just that that district doesn't even mention gas stations. So it tells me that I'm not sure.
So they would just been a nightmare.
So we could, in the B3, if somebody came to us, we could approve a conditional use as opposed to adding it in and then having to give them one unless we could find a reason to deny it.
I think that's true. Michael, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I would. Good point, Mark.
Okay. So do you guys want to keep your flexibility there? Keep your powder dry?
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's a change of heart.
Yep.
Okay.
Further explanation helpful.
And then the hotel, we decided on the hotels, motels, that's not an issue.
We're not gonna do anything
Nope.
with hotel. Nope. And B4, we're not gonna add it in.
So B4 allows private clubs and resorts and business parks, shopping centers, CUPs with B4 allow it. Right. Same circumstance as the B3. Leave it as it is.
Okay. Thank you. Now, last one, I promise. Last question for CUPs. This relates to truck washes. So this was, we have draft text in here. I haven't changed it since the outset other than just adding this as a use. But I'd like to confirm with all of you which districts you want to list that as a conditional use. And also based on a planner appointment we had today that prompted me to look at the language that we were proposing for this particular land use. And I actually would like to pitch a slight change to that text, regardless of which district it's in.
Go ahead, Rachel. Let's hear it.
So I guess currently we're proposing that a truck wash could be a conditional use listed in the B3, B4, Q1, M1, and M2 districts. Because these are more highway oriented, places where you'd think you might have big truck traffic. To me, that seemed logical, but are there any districts where you want to not mention it and then, kind of hold your cards like you did with these other uses?
Mr. Chairman, in this instance, I would think if we're going to do a truck wash, I would want it near sewer and water lines. and not have to get into a major discussion or argument over high-capacity wells.
What was that again, Ed? Can you repeat that?
Time to take this off.
Thank you.
If it's truck wash, I would propose, as far as whether it's B1 or, and I'm looking for that on the screen. I don't want it in an area where it's going to be dependent on a high capacity well. Because that would lead to more trouble and certainly a lot of discussion. Am I making any sense? Because a truck wash is going to use a lot of water and there's going to be a lot of stuff.
You don't actually know that anymore, because look at what happened up on Cube, where they were able to do it with a conventional well, just doing it with water storage.
Okay. If the technology's ahead of me, then I take that back.
They haven't done it yet.
This wasn't Quick Trip, it was someone else, yeah.
They can use gray
quite a
water
bit.
to wash.
Right, and I'm familiar with the concept of gray water, and I didn't, because wasn't there a proposal to put a proposal in the pipeline to put a truck wash somewhere in Quarry Corners?
That's what they're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, this kind of stalled last year, and then we were directed to figure out how to address this in your zoning code. Meanwhile, that project, kind of went away because of the issues with, working with Sussex. But then now that new agreement's done, the kind of dust has settled on all that. They're coming back with that project, but it just happens to be timed with this, where I think they might move ahead a little faster than this ordinance amendment even. So we've discussed with that particular user just today that we would be processing them as a conditional use anyway, but you wouldn't have these, specific criteria to use. You just have the general conditional use criteria.
They're on a collector street anyway, so.
They are, but they wouldn't take access on it. So actually that's the text changes I was thinking of here, where at first I thought, oh yes, make them be on a collector or arterial street, but doesn't matter if they're taking access. The way I had it worded in the initial draft didn't really make that clear. So I was going to propose that it must be located on a collector or arterial street as defined in your ordinances, unless location on a minor street is determined to be acceptable by the town plan commission. And I thought maybe we mentioned public works director as well. It seemed like the reason behind that would be, damage to town streets and just making sure they're on a road that can handle that kind of traffic.
Which makes sense.
Right. Does everybody like that in there? Yeah. Okay, we like it in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Why is it not permitted in the BP district?
Let's see. Well, it's not permitted anywhere yet, but we can do whatever we want. BP. So that district is intended for orderly and attractive grouping of diverse office, retail, and customer service uses and industrial uses of limited intensity, where the appearance of such mixed uses is enhanced by pleasing building architecture and generously landscaped sites.
Okay.
And this references that addendum E, your design standards. So it just seemed like this was meant for a lot of the uses listed here were less intensive.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I'm actually kind of thinking instead of making it a conditional use in B2, 3, Q1, M1, M2, that we go silent there so that we don't have to come up with a reason to deny, and we can still approve a conditional use if we think it fits, but we have a little more room to say no.
Thoughts, comments? Brian?
I'll let you go.
It's just a thought. I'm not adamant about it.
It's a good thought. I mean,
yeah.
Otherwise, you're restricting having to give evidence why it isn't.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
This
that was
isn't
my thought is, you know, if he comes to us and we don't really like the way it is, we have limited means of saying no.
I'm just
Right.
checking across the districts to see if any of the other conditional uses have that treatment, like silent treatment in every district. There's none. I think every district has, well,
Well, this one has,
Maybe
you
not.
know, truck washes have a lot of districts where it would be not permitted.
yeah. And the reason I raise this question too is whatever you decide on these districts, we can, we'd have to work that into the various zoning districts and just make sure it's listed. Or if you want to prohibit it anywhere in particular, we can do that because it's a conditional use. I think it's relevant here. But that could be whatever you decide on this tonight. It'd be easy to,
Yeah, you have it
add that
not
reference.
permitted right now in C1 through essentially PI, is it, or no, all the way up through B2.
That's right. Although technically the districts would be silent on that, so I probably should have just a little dash in those boxes.
Well, I'm okay with making them, you know, not permitted in everything except where we want to let them be. But and my question and my thought was, instead of making them conditional in those 5, maybe just go silent there instead of not permitted, so that we have a little more flexibility.
Now, Michael, is that would that be all right to not mention it in any district? We might have to specify in this section then that it may be
Yeah, I
allowed
would
as a conditional use or something.
identify it in,
Q1.
yeah,
Put it in Q1.
Q1 and Q1 only?
Same place we put adult establishments. Q1.
That's the one. So we could put it in Q1 only. Then the question is, you have a site and an application that is currently, I guess, reactivated on a site zoned B4. Is there any reason we didn't tell them that there's any problem with proceeding?
Let me add too, that their application, if it comes in, we have to wait. We cannot apply this ordinance until it gets county approval and published. It doesn't become
It's already not listed anywhere anyway, right?
correct. So it
So
would,
it's the same thing.
yes, it would be, it's going to proceed as, it
So
could, yeah, nothing really changes, but
Right.
just to note that.
Yeah, because you already have a catch-all language in your code that says if it's unspecified, but it sort of fits the conditional uses of the district and seems in line with those, you could process something as a conditional use. That's what we'd have to use in this case.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay. So you guys do want it listed in Q1 though as one district, or?
I mean, we have to list it
Sorry.
in one. We want to have control where these things are going to go, so. One,
Yeah, I think that's a fair idea.
put it in the bottom of the pit or come first.
All right.
Put it right next to Lisbon Lakes. It'll be all fine.
Not in my backyard.
And then are you all fine with this language about the collector arterial streets unless you are okay with a minor street being the access point?
But just as reworded here.
Yeah, it's A.
Correct.
I like
Everybody-
having this in.
Yeah.
Everybody likes it.
Okay. Thank you. So then everything in the packet we have covered for this section 4 conversation. Then
We did have one question, Rachel.
oh, sorry.
We brought up one last week, obviously, by Noel, the 500 and 300 foot setbacks, or not
Yes.
setbacks. For
Thank you.
notifying. That was on,
I saw it somewhere in here.
We had public comments about that too, that I did not address all of them yet. I apologize.
The application requirements, I believe, number 1.
Yeah. So that was one where you guys were not unanimous. You landed on, let's make everything 300 feet because that's the distance already specified for rezonings. Conditional uses currently have a 500-foot notice requirement. So we took it in the current draft back down to 300. So all public notices are the same 300 feet. But based on the public comments received, if you want to reconsider that,
I mean, what we're doing is we're basically having to alert more people.
I'm going to add a slide here while we're.
I mean, you're literally maybe 1 to 2 more properties in width, or I guess I don't see it as unreasonable.
No.
What is,
I'll propose that we reconsider to the 500 feet.
I agree.
who was that, Ed?
Ditto.
That's a ditto.
Okay.
All right, 500.
Now, if you'll bear with me, because we can get this to a motion tonight, I'm just going to put this on the slide as we're discussing. I just want to reference the correct section. Michael, this would affect a couple different sections. I feel confident that we can just make that correction based on what we're hearing here.
Yes, I had written them down as well, so if you want to type, I can confirm that that's what my understanding was too.
Okay, awesome. For C4. And I guess if we see any other sections, I think those are the only 2 places where that gets referenced here. Another public comment received last month related to somebody was concerned that we were removing a sentence that said only those uses listed as conditional uses in the zoning district shall be authorized. And they thought that that would broaden it too broadly. But as we have discussed in other meetings previous to this, that section 3B3 of your code already has language like that. So we didn't think that was actually a policy change. It's just simply removing a repeated text, but that could, we could certainly add that back in if you think that's important to restate that in section 4. I think the intent there was to retain some flexibility. So if you felt like, well, it's not listed, but you want to process it as a conditional use because you didn't anticipate it there and you think it makes sense, you can certainly do that.
It's already in there, right? It's just elsewhere.
Yeah, it's in section 3 right now, but we were proposing to remove it from section 4.
Yeah. Michael, what are you recommending on
Just
this?
let's, we can leave it out. I would recommend that. We've already
Okay.
got it.
Yeah.
I said yes. You guys good with that?
Yes.
Consensus,
Yes.
Becky?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ditto?
Ditto.
All right.
Yes.
Yep.
And then there was a public comment. Oh, sorry, am I going too fast?
No.
Okay, another one just regarding the, remember we discussed the use and enjoyment of property language about, not impacting other people's use and enjoyment. We discussed the word enjoyment. We could just cut that because we thought it was the same as use from a legal standpoint. But somebody commented and thought that it is worth keeping the word enjoyment in there. So wanted to bring that back to you and ask the question.
We're putting it back in.
Okay.
Yes.
more of a legal term of art.
Say, I don't like it. I don't want it there.
Use and enjoyment of property. It's a legal thing that I'd rather have in than not. I don't really know the best way to explain it, but yeah.
I know it's hard to measure somebody's enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand, yeah, that angle. It really, use and enjoyment are synonymous in the legal world when dealing with a real property matter. So I wouldn't be too concerned about adding it back in.
Art doesn't like that.
It's not a burning issue, but I would leave it out.
All right, or if Blank sure like to do
Ed?
so, that's fine.
No, I'm, in terms of term, I'm fine with it. Yes.
Becky?
Yeah, I'm fine, whatever. If,
Okay.
if Michael thinks it should be in there, then I think we should put it in there.
Okay. Put it back in.
Okay. Just throwing this on the slide here. Okay, I know there's one other here. Okay, comments on the quarry section, and this was mentioned earlier as well. So section B, 4B 25. 2. So the public comments received thought that there was a policy change. And I thought that, and Michael, I know we discussed this, but I think the only, I'll have to look at the section again, but we had said initially currently the code says the application and all data and information pertaining thereto shall be referred to the Plan Commission. I think we cut that language down to just say the application shall be referred to the Plan Commission. My recollection is I don't think that you thought that there was any difference there because all that information would have to be relayed anyway. Is there any concern there?
I don't believe there is. I don't think there needs to be any changes based on this public comment.
And then the considerations that the board should review, there was some language in there that we cut because we thought that that was repetitive to the ones in the general, that apply to all conditional uses. But noise and dust, I mean, go down to that.
Don't need it?
No.
Anybody feel we need it? Ditto.
Not needed.
Yep.
Okay.
Out.
So you're okay with the draft as is there in that quarry section?
Yes.
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 All right. I promise that was the last question I had. What I've done here on the slides, I have these kind of teed up as, if you're ready to go there, a potential approval motion as far as staff, and I can clean this up as we go here, but based on the conversation we just had, staff is recommending approval of draft ordinance amendments as presented in the packet with the additional modifications as discussed tonight at this Plan Commission meeting to the following sections. And here is where I try to recap anything we discussed tonight.
I mean, so we have made some changes. You want to see a finalized copy of this before we approve? You feel like everybody knows what we've changed here tonight, knows what this final document is going to look like, and you want to approve it? What's the feeling?
Let's approve it.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'd say we go with it.
Oh, yeah,
Approve it tonight.
If Becky and Mark think it's a good idea, let's go for it. I'm on board.
Okay.
All right. I'm just cleaning these up. Most of these actually would go away because of the feedback you gave tonight was really not making changes to our current draft on most of these. So that's simplifies this. I'm going to save a different version here. Okay. That one talked about double offsets. These are okay, but no change required here. Same to this. I'm just striking through these ones that we don't even have to address in a motion. They are not to be listed. Hotels, motels, these are not to be listed. That means keep the draft and keep the current code the same as far as those uses. So we're looking at the slides. Only have two. Correct me if I'm wrong here, team effort, two changes from what you would see in tonight's packets. And that would be the public notices would get changed back to 500 feet where that is mentioned in section 4. And the words and enjoyment would be put back in.
We had some change, we had other changes.
Yeah, I have add the modification for the truck wash that you have written in the PowerPoint, the second.
Yes.
And then also truck wash is only in Q1.
Got it. Thank you.
Those total 4 total additions or updates tonight.
List only in Q1 and we'll modify that to read. All right. So I have 3 bullets, but really that's 4 edits technically, right?
Everybody
So-
understand these and you understand what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Yes. Mark, you good?
Yes.
Good. Well, does anyone wish to make this motion? Move the approval of the draft ordinance amendments as presented in the packet with the additional modifications as discussed at the 2/11/2021 Plan Commission meeting to the following sections, which are listed, section 4B1 and 4, parent C4. Required public notices to go out 500 feet. Section 4D1F, reinsert the words and enjoyment in the proposed use shall not injure the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted nor substantially diminished or impair the property values in the neighborhood. And then section 4, parent H37, truck washes, list only in the Q1, section 30, and modified to read, the use must be located on a collector or arterial street as defined in the Lisbon Code of Ordinances unless a location on a minor street is determined to be acceptable by the Town Plan Commission and Public Works Director. Is there a second to that?
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. All right, that takes us to planner appointments.
All right. Congratulations on that, by the way. That is a heavy lift.
Thanks for all the good work, you guys, both of you.
Okay, so we have had, I mentioned planner appointments. We had 4 more today. Just, they keep coming in. I need to, sorry, need to get you that data on 24-hour convenience stores. I apologize, that's not in here yet. Next meeting should be easier. Still updating town application forms. Kathy, I will get those to you very soon. Now that we're done with the, almost done with the code edits here, we can, that's the priority. I mentioned Quick Trip on Highway Q. That was one of our planner appointments today. They are coming back with a revised site plan. That would also be a conditional use. This is up on, Q and 164. They would also be at some point involving a CSM to reconfigure their lot. They're going to expand that lot to be larger because they had to get their secondary access moved further south. So they're working with an adjacent landowner to reconfigure the site. And I forget the dates, Kathy. I've got my papers all over here, but they'll be coming, I think, for maybe April is their target plan commission date.
Correct.
Thank you. I mentioned the truck wash. They met with us today. I think they will be submitting this month for March. Did I have that right? They might be another month out as well. Because they need to get their civil drawings and all that together.
Yep, April 8th.
So April, thank you. There's a county public works site. They're just doing a tank replacement that I think that's on Lisbon Road. We just had that meeting today as well. So that will be coming in as a site plan amendment. Have to confirm the setbacks, but that should be coming in pretty shortly. And others that are, we previously mentioned, I think all of these, but Kraus Kowalski, there's a CSM pending. I don't know. I don't think that's come in yet, has it?
No.
Okay, that's still kind of waiting in the wings. We have, we might have to follow up with Mr. Aubrey on that senior residential proposal. This would be Howard Lane area. I think he had to do some contacting the county as well. There's some questions there, but that could become something. I'm not sure on the timeline though. Land and Stone, they are proposing a solar field. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting. That's Lisbon Road, where the Stark asphalt operation is, but just a little bit west of it on that site on the very west end. I think they should be coming in pretty soon. I have to double check if we have any follow-up needed with them. I think they were just putting together their plans, and we're going to bring those back when they're ready. Land and Stone, a different part of their operation, thinking about a privacy screening fence wall thing. I don't know if that will, I have to confirm if they talk to the county about that. That's all county zoning where they're proposing it. But it seems like just an accessory thing that I think would only need a site plan, but it's just not a typical kind of proposal. And another CSM on Hillside Road, that might come in. I probably should just take that off the list. That's not urgent on the part of that owner right now. So did I miss anything, Kathy, that you can think of?
We had the one for the gravel pit this morning.
Oh, thank you. Lafarge.
Operation. Yeah, hours of operation. It's a CU site plan of operation. We don't have an original site plan of operation, so they've got to bring in a full one. But they want to extend their hours from 6. Right now it's 6 to 6, and they want to go 6 to 9 p.m. But it's not going to be trucking. It's just going to be plant moving in the plant, and that was due to the fact that they're trying to work their staff different shifts, separate them, so then they're not doing so much together. And then also because they're seeing they saw a really huge increase with their electric, and they're thinking if they do a little bit more later in the evening, that might reduce that. So he did bring that forward, Randy.
Interesting.
And that's not until April also, if he brings it forward. I think that's it.
Okay.
That's all I have. I've talked at you enough tonight, I think.
All right, anything else from anybody?
I'm going to be absent in April. Just kidding.
Item 7 is adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Chad. Is there a
Second.
Seconded by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Nelson has rested.
Good night,
We're out
Mark.
At
Have a
9:40.
good night, everybody.
Yeah,
You too. Good night. Thanks.